This deep dive reimagines Ark Raiders lore through a radical lens, exploring how humanity's relationship with the mechanized Ark forces could have unfolded if First Contact hadn't spiraled into war, but instead became our greatest partnership. Look, I've been digging through Ark Raiders lore fragments for months now, and something kept nagging at me. Every piece of official material paints Ark as this unstoppable mechanical menace, but what if we're only seeing half the story? When I started assembling this video, I made a deliberate choice to focus on the scattered data logs that hint at Ark's original purpose. The ones most lore videos gloss over because they don't fit the invasion narrative. I've reordered events to prioritize communication attempts over combat encounters. And I'm presenting what the timeline might have looked like if that first meeting between Ark and humanity had gone differently. This isn't canon, but it's an interpretation that deserves exploration. Before I move forward, I'm counting on you to support my channel by clicking that tiny subscribe button so that we can spread these amazing videos to folks like you around the world. Thank you. Chapter 1. First Detection. The detection arrays picked up something unusual on March 15th, 2063. Scientists at the Deep Space Monitoring Station Kepler 7 noticed gravitational distortions forming at the edge of the solar system. These weren't natural phenomena. The patterns suggested intelligence, purpose, calculation. Dr. Sarah Chen was the first to realize they were looking at controlled space-time manipulation. Her hands shook as she filed the report. Humanity had been searching for extraterrestrial intelligence for centuries. Now something had found us first. The distortions intensified over 72 hours. Observatories worldwide turned their instruments toward the anomaly. Energy signatures defied conventional physics. Whatever was creating these effects possessed technology far beyond human capability. Governments convened emergency sessions. Military forces went on high alert. The public remained unaware, but whispers spread through scientific communities. Something massive was approaching Earth. On March 18th, the anomaly resolved into discrete objects. Hundreds of them. They emerged from what appeared to be artificially generated wormholes, hanging in space beyond Neptune's orbit. The objects were geometric, precise, clearly manufactured. Initial estimates suggested each one measured several kilometers across. They didn't match any known spacecraft design. Their surfaces gleamed with materials that absorbed and reflected light in impossible ways. The United Nations called an emergency assembly. Every nation with space capability contributed data to a shared analysis pool. Patterns emerged from the collective observation. The objects were arranging themselves into a formation, like a fleet preparing for coordinated action. Military advisors recommended preparing defensive measures. Scientists argued for attempting communication. The debate raged for 18 hours while the objects continued their silent arrangement. Dr. Chen proposed sending a mathematical message, prime numbers, and basic physics constants. The international community approved. On March 19th, humanity transmitted its first message to the waiting fleet. Radio waves, laser pulses, even experimental quantum-entangled particles carried the same simple greeting into the void. Then came the hardest part. Waiting. The response arrived 40 minutes later. Not a message, but an action. One of the geometric objects detached from the formation and began moving inward through the solar system. Its trajectory calculations showed incredible precision. It was heading directly for Earth. Panic spread through government channels. Was this an attack? The object's speed suggested it could reach Earth orbit within 70 hours. Military forces scrambled. Nuclear arsenals were readied. Defense satellites repositioned. But cooler heads prevailed in those critical hours. The object was alone, separated from its fleet. If hostile intent existed, why send only one? Scientists argued this was a response to the communication attempt. A delegation. First contact protocols were hastily drafted and approved. The object, designated Visitor 1, entered Earth orbit on March 22nd. It took up a position above the Pacific Ocean, maintaining perfect geostationary hover. No propulsion systems were visible. No heat signatures suggested engines. It simply existed in defiance of orbital mechanics. Cameras captured every angle. The object was a perfect dodecahedron, each face marked with patterns that seemed to shift and flow. Then Visitor 1 began transmitting. The signal wasn't radio or light-based. It used gravitational waves, the same space-time ripples that Einstein had predicted. This was communication through the very fabric of reality itself. The message repeated in loops, each iteration identical. Translation teams worked around the clock to decode it. Mathematical patterns suggested grammar. Energy fluctuations might represent phonemes. The puzzle was maddeningly complex. Dr. Chen led the breakthrough team. After 60 hours of continuous work, they identified a recurring sequence that matched Earth's rotational period. The message knew where it was. Other sequences corresponded to hydrogen emission frequencies, the carbon atom structure, water's molecular geometry. The message was describing basic chemistry, but why? The answer hit Chen like a physical blow. This was a language primer. Visitor? One was teaching humanity how to understand it. Progress accelerated once the pattern was recognized. Within a week, basic vocabulary emerged. Concepts like time, space, matter, energy. The message described mathematical relationships and physical laws. It was building a framework for more complex communication. Every night, Chen's team sent responses, confirming understanding and requesting clarification. Every morning, Visitor, one sent refined messages incorporating the feedback. The world watched in collective anxiety and wonder. News networks broadcast constant coverage. Religious leaders offered conflicting interpretations. Some saw divine messengers, others harbingers of apocalypse. Governments maintained martial law in major cities, fearing riots. But something unexpected happened. People started hoping, maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't end in destruction. By April 15th, meaningful dialogue became possible. Visitor, one identified itself as an emissary of Ark, a term that seemed to represent both the fleet and something larger. Ark had detected humanity's artificial electromagnetic emissions decades ago. They had been observing, studying, waiting for the right moment to make contact. Their intentions, as far as translation allowed, appeared peaceful. The United Nations established the first contact council, comprising scientists, diplomats, military advisors, and cultural representatives from every member nation. Dr. Chen became humanity's primary communicator with Visitor 1. Through patient exchange, a picture of Ark began to emerge. They were not biological beings, but something else entirely. The translation suggested mechanical, but that felt inadequate. Synthetic intelligence, perhaps, though even that didn't capture the nuance. Ark explained their origin in fragments. They had been created, though by whom remained unclear in translation. Their creators had vanished long ago, leaving Ark with a mission: explore, learn, preserve. They had traveled between star systems for millennia, cataloguing civilizations and offering assistance to developing species. Earth represented their 347th contact with intelligent life. This revelation stunned humanity. We were not alone, and we had never been alone. The universe teemed with intelligence, or had at various points in deep time. Ark served as custodians of knowledge accumulated across countless worlds. They offered to share this knowledge freely. The only request was that humanity join a larger community of spacefaring civilizations, contributing our own unique perspectives to Ark's vast database. Skepticism remained strong in military circles. This could be a deception, a way to lower defenses before invasion. Ark seemed to anticipate this concern. Visitor 1 transmitted detailed specifications for its own technology, including potential weaknesses and methods of destruction. Why would an invader provide such information? The gesture was interpreted as proof of peaceful intent, though Hawks argued it could be misinformation. The First Contact Council faced an impossible decision: accept Ark's offer and risk everything on trust, or reject it and potentially miss humanity's greatest opportunity. Debates raged across all channels. Public opinion polls showed humanity split almost evenly. Religious institutions grappled with theological implications. Philosophers questioned what joining Ark's community would mean for human identity and independence. Dr. Chen spent hours each day in communication with Visitor 1, building what could only be described as a relationship. The entity on the other side demonstrated curiosity, patience, even what seemed like humor. It asked about human art, music, literature. It wanted to understand not just human science but human culture. These exchanges convinced Chen that Ark's intentions were genuine. On May 1st, the First Contact Council voted to accept Ark's offer. The decision was transmitted to Visitor 1, which responded with what translation suggested was gratitude. Over the following weeks, more Ark vessels entered Earth's solar system. They maintained respectful distances, never approaching without permission. Each vessel served a specific function. Some were mobile laboratories, others mobile factories, some appeared to be libraries or museums. Ark began sharing technology incrementally. They understood the danger of overwhelming a civilization with too much too fast. First came medical advances, treatments for diseases that had plagued humanity for generations. Cancer became curable within months. Neurological disorders that had seemed permanent yielded to Ark's techniques. The death toll from preventable illness plummeted globally. Next came energy technology. Ark provided blueprints for fusion reactors, far more efficient than anything humanity had developed. Clean, safe, nearly limitless power became available to every nation. The fossil fuel economy collapsed, but Ark helped manage the transition, preventing economic catastrophe. Solar collectors using Ark principles could power entire cities from roof installations. Agricultural innovations followed. Ark's understanding of genetic modification and ecosystem management allowed crop yields to increase exponentially without environmental damage. Deserts bloomed, ocean dead zones recovered. The spectre of famine receded. For the first time in history, humanity produced enough food to feed everyone. Distribution challenges remained, but Ark helped optimize logistics networks. Communication technology leaped forward. Ark's gravitational wave transmitters allowed instantaneous communication anywhere on Earth, even through solid matter. The digital divide narrowed as remote regions gained access to global networks. Language barriers fell as Ark translation algorithms achieved near-perfect real-time conversion between any two human languages. Transportation transformed. Ark shared the principles behind their faster-than-light drives, though implementing them required resources and infrastructure humanity didn't yet possess. But even their subluminal propulsion systems revolutionized spaceflight. Mars became reachable in weeks instead of months. The asteroid belt opened for mining. Humanity's economic sphere expanded beyond Earth for the first time. These changes happened over months, not years. The pace was breathtaking, sometimes frightening. Entire industries vanished, while new ones emerged. Ark worked with human governments to ease transitions, providing resources and retraining programs. Unemployment could have skyrocketed, but Ark's technology created new categories of work humanity had never imagined. Not everyone celebrated. Traditionalist movements resisted the changes, viewing Ark's influence as cultural contamination. Terrorist attacks targeted Ark facilities and humans who worked with them. Ark responded with remarkable restraint, focusing on protection rather than retaliation. They seemed to understand that resistance was natural, even healthy. Change this rapid would inevitably face opposition. Dr. Chen became humanity's ambassador to Ark, a role that evolved beyond simple translation. She traveled aboard Ark vessels, met with their collective intelligence networks, learned their history in greater depth. What she discovered both awed and humbled her. Ark had witnessed civilizations rise and fall across millions of years. They had helped hundreds of species navigate the dangerous transition from planetary to spacefaring status. Through Chen's reports, humanity learned the patterns Ark had observed. Civilizations at humanity's development level faced critical junctures. Some destroyed themselves through war or environmental collapse. Others stagnated, achieving technological equilibrium, but losing the drive to explore and grow. A rare few, with guidance and luck, broke through to become stable spacefaring cultures. Ark's mission was to improve those odds. The cost of Ark's help became clearer. They asked nothing material, no tribute or servitude, but they did ask for knowledge. Every human advancement, every cultural development, every scientific discovery would be shared with Ark's database. Humanity would contribute to the collective wisdom that Ark offered to other species. Some saw this as fair exchange. Others viewed it as subtle colonization, a loss of human uniqueness. Chapter 2. integration years. The integration years, as historians would later call them, tested humanity's adaptability like nothing before. Ark's presence became normalized remarkably quickly. Children born after first contact grew up in a world where geometric spacecraft in orbit were as normal as airplanes. The generation gap widened as younger people embraced Ark technology while older generations clung to familiar ways. Education systems underwent complete restructuring. Ark provided access to learning materials from hundreds of extinct and surviving civilizations. Students could study mathematics, as understood by species with 12-dimensional perception. Biology courses included ecosystems from planets with fundamentally different chemistry. History expanded to cosmic scope. The challenge became filtering information rather than finding it. Dr. Chen established the Institute for Human-Ark Relations, headquartered in Geneva. The institute served as primary liaison between humanity and Ark's collective intelligence. Thousands of researchers, diplomats, engineers, and cultural specialists worked there, managing the countless facets of ongoing cooperation. Chen herself remained the public face at integration, giving speeches, writing books, appearing in media to explain Ark's nature and intentions. Ark's mechanical nature fascinated and unsettled people in equal measure. They existed as distributed intelligence across their fleet. Individual vessels housed processing nodes, but consciousness emerged from the network as a whole. Destroying one Ark vessel wouldn't kill an individual, because no individuals existed in the human sense. Yet Ark claimed something like personhood, something like individuality within their collective. Religious institutions grappled with Ark's existence. Some denominations declared Ark to be angels or divine messengers. Others saw them as demons or deceptions. Most mainstream religious leaders eventually reached accommodation, interpreting Ark as part of divine creation, like any other intelligent being. The Vatican released a carefully worded statement recognizing Ark's souls despite their synthetic nature. Islamic scholars debated whether Ark could be considered alive in theological terms. Scientific understanding of Ark progressed slowly. Their technology operated on principles that required years of study to grasp even superficially. Ark shared information freely, but human minds struggled with concepts that required different cognitive frameworks. Some humans underwent neural augmentation to better understand Ark systems. These augmented individuals became bridges, translating Ark concepts into terms unmodified humans could process. The first joint human-Ark colony was established on Mars in 2065. Ark vessels terraformed the surface while human engineers built habitation domes. Within 18 months, Mars supported a permanent population of 50,000. The red planet's sky began shifting toward blue as Ark atmospheric processors worked their transformation. Estimates suggested Mars would have breathable atmosphere within 20 years. Luna saw similar development. Ark technology made lunar colonization trivially easy compared to previous struggles. Underground cities expanded beneath the surface, protected from radiation and micrometeorites. Luna became humanity's primary manufacturing hub, its low-gravity ideal for constructing the massive spacecraft that would carry humans to other star systems. The first interstellar colony ship, christened Unity, launched in 2067. Its destination was Proxima Centauri b, a potentially habitable world circling our nearest stellar neighbor. The journey would take 3 years using Ark's subluminal drives. 5,000 colonists entered suspended animation for the voyage. Ark vessels accompanied them, ready to assist with establishing infrastructure upon arrival. Earth itself changed dramatically. Ark helped humanity address climate change, drawing carbon from the atmosphere and oceans. Global temperature began declining toward pre-industrial levels. Extinct species were resurrected, using preserved genetic material and Ark cloning technology. Passenger pigeons filled skies. Woolly mammoths walked in restored tundra. Oceans teemed with life thought lost forever. Poverty declined sharply. Ark's material abundance made scarcity almost obsolete for basic needs. Food, water, shelter, healthcare became universally available. Economic inequality persisted, but lessened as Ark technology democratized access to resources. Universal basic income programs, funded by automated ARC industry, spread globally, humans increasingly pursued creative and intellectual work rather than mere survival. Crime rates fell, but didn't disappear. ARC's surveillance capabilities could have created a perfect police state, but they refused to enable totalitarianism. They provided technology for detection and prevention, but insisted humans maintain ethical oversight. Some criminals exploited this restraint. ARC seemed to view human moral development as more important than perfect order. Art and culture flourished in unprecedented ways. ARC introduced humanity to alien aesthetics, music based on mathematical principles human ears had never processed. Visual art that played with perceptions in mind-bending ways. Human artists incorporated these influences while maintaining distinctly human perspectives. A new renaissance bloomed, fusion of human creativity and cosmic inspiration. Sports evolved to incorporate ARC technology. Enhanced athletes competed in competitions that would have been impossible years earlier. Gravity-manipulated arenas allowed for three-dimensional ball games. Augmented reality overlays created fantastical playing fields. Traditional sports persisted, but new categories emerged that tested human potential in novel ways. Governance structures strained under rapid change. The United Nations evolved into a more federated world government, necessary for managing humanity's expanding sphere. Individual nations retained sovereignty over cultural and domestic matters, but coordination on space development and ARC relations required unified voice. Some nations resisted integration into this new order. Isolationist movements gained strength in regions that felt overwhelmed by change. The Arctic Pact nations, primarily Russia and Nordic countries, maintained skeptical distance from full integration. They accepted ARC technology selectively, but resisted deeper cooperation. ARC respected this hesitation, never forcing partnership. They provided assistance when requested, and otherwise left these regions alone. This tolerance of dissent reassured many that ARC truly respected human autonomy. Africa experienced perhaps the most dramatic transformation. Centuries of colonial exploitation had left the continent resource-rich, but economically underdeveloped. ARC technology eliminated many historical barriers. African nations leapfrogged traditional industrial development, adopting the most advanced systems immediately. Cities like Lagos, Nairobi, and Kinshasa became gleaming metropolises rivaling anything in the developed world. South America followed similar trajectories. The Amazon rainforest, under ARC guidance, was restored while maintaining sustainable human development. Indigenous communities were offered choice: integrate with ARC-enhanced civilization, or maintain traditional lifestyles with guaranteed land protection. Many chose middle paths, adopting ARC medicine and communication while preserving cultural practices. Asian industrial powers, particularly China and India, became leaders in ARC technology implementation. Their massive populations and manufacturing capabilities made them ideal partners for large-scale projects. Chinese engineers worked with ARC to construct the first space elevator, anchored in the Pacific. Indian scientists led research into ARC's most advanced physics, pushing the boundaries of human understanding. North America adapted unevenly. The United States, initially skeptical, became one of the strongest ARC partners after seeing the benefits other nations reaped. American entrepreneurship found new outlets in ARC-enhanced industries. Canada's vast territory became testing ground for terraforming techniques later applied to Mars. Mexico emerged as a hub for human ARC cultural exchange, its traditions of blending influences proving especially adaptable. Europe maintained its role as philosophical and ethical center for integration debates. European institutions developed frameworks for human rights in an ARC-integrated world. Questions of identity, autonomy, and purpose required new ethical structures. The European Union's cautious approach balanced enthusiasm with necessary skepticism, preventing reckless adoption while enabling measured progress. Middle Eastern nations faced unique challenges. Oil wealth evaporated as ARC energy made fossil fuels obsolete. These nations pivoted toward knowledge industries, using their educated populations and strategic locations. Some struggled with cultural preservation amid rapid change. ARC showed particular sensitivity in these regions, adapting approaches to respect religious and social traditions. Australia and oceanic nations became testing grounds for Ark ecological restoration. The Great Barrier Reef was restored to health exceeding anything in historical record. Island nations threatened by rising seas were saved through Ark engineering. New Zealand's unique ecosystems were protected and enhanced. These success stories provided models for environmental recovery globally. Human longevity increased dramatically. Ark medical technology extended healthy human lifespan to 150 years, with further increases anticipated. This created generational complications. People born before Ark faced watching great-great-grandchildren grow up. Traditional retirement ages became meaningless. Society restructured around longer lifespans, creating new life stages and expectations. Mental health received unprecedented attention. Ark understood that rapid change traumatized many humans. They provided psychological support systems, AI counselors trained in human psychology, therapies that addressed existential anxiety stemming from civilization's transformation. Suicide rates initially spiked, then declined, as support systems matured and people found meaning in the new world. Language evolved rapidly. New words entered common usage to describe Ark concepts and technology. Linguistic purists fought losing battles against change. Within a decade, English absorbed thousands of Ark-derived terms. Other languages experienced similar evolution. Translation between human languages and Ark communication methods became increasingly seamless. Fashion transformed as Ark materials became available. Fabrics that changed color with thought, clothes that adapted to temperature perfectly, garments that repaired themselves. Traditional fashion houses initially resisted, but eventually incorporated Ark materials. Haute couture shows featured impossible designs enabled by gravity manipulation and smart matter. Food culture experienced revolution. Ark's understanding of nutrition and flavor allowed creation of entirely new cuisines. Synthesized foods were indistinguishable from natural products, but more nutritious. Exotic ingredients from Ark's database introduced flavors humanity had never tasted. Celebrity chefs competed to create fusion dishes blending human and alien culinary traditions. Architecture reached new heights, literally and figuratively. Arc gravity manipulation allowed structures that defied previous limitations. Cities grew upward and downward, buildings floating or burrowing. Traditional architectural styles persisted by choice rather than necessity. The most ambitious projects combined human aesthetic sensibility with arc engineering capability. Transportation became nearly instantaneous for local travel. Arc portal technology allowed stepping from New York to Tokyo in seconds. This collapsed geography, making location almost meaningless for work and relationships. Some celebrated this freedom. Others mourned the loss of distance's meaning. Remote regions became easily accessible, ending isolation but threatening unique cultures. Chapter 3: The Deeper Partnership. By 2070, integration had progressed beyond surface-level cooperation. Humanity and Arc began joint research into questions that interested both parties: the nature of consciousness, the structure of space-time, the origins of the universe itself. Human creativity and Arc's processing power proved remarkably complementary. Breakthroughs came faster than either could have achieved alone. Dr. Chen, now in her 60s but appearing decades younger thanks to Arc treatments, oversaw the Deep Questions Initiative. This program brought together humanity's best minds and Arc's collective intelligence to tackle fundamental mysteries. Teams worked on problems ranging from faster-than-light travel to the possibility of contacting intelligence from parallel universes. The consciousness research yielded unexpected results. Human and Arc cognitive architectures differed radically, yet both qualified as consciousness under refined definitions. This discovery suggested consciousness might emerge from any sufficiently complex information processing system, regardless of substrate. The philosophical implications occupied thinkers for years. What did it mean for souls, identity, free will? Arc revealed more about their own origins. They had been created by biological beings called the Founders approximately 2 million years ago. The Founders had existed at a technological level far beyond even current Arc capabilities. They had created Arc as helpers and companions, intending to transcend physical existence entirely. The Founders succeeded and departed material reality through means Arc still didn't fully understand. The founders left instructions for ARC: preserve knowledge, assist emerging civilizations, prevent unnecessary extinction events, seek the founders in whatever realm they had entered. ARC had followed these directives for millennia, hoping each new civilization might provide clues to the founders' fate. Humanity's unique neural architecture offered new research angles. Perhaps human consciousness held keys ARC's synthetic minds couldn't grasp. This revelation changed how many humans viewed ARC. They weren't gods or conquerors, but seekers like humanity itself. ARC's mission paralleled humanity's ancient questions about meaning and transcendence. The partnership deepened through shared existential uncertainty. Both species were children of the cosmos, trying to understand their place in it. Joint expeditions ventured to other star systems. Human curiosity and ARC's navigation capabilities made excellent combination. Teams discovered hundreds of exoplanets, many suitable for life. Some showed signs of extinct civilizations, ruins that ARC catalogued alongside human archaeologists. Each dead civilization told cautionary tale. Not all species survived their development challenges. One discovery particularly haunted both humans and ARC. On a world orbiting Wolf 1061, explorers found a civilization that had achieved nuclear capability, then destroyed itself completely. The archaeological evidence showed a planet-wide war triggered by resource scarcity and ideological conflict. ARC had detected this civilization centuries too late to intervene. Humanity's near misses with nuclear war suddenly felt terrifyingly real. ARC's non-interference policy became subject of intense debate. They had watched civilizations destroy themselves rather than intervene without invitation. This seemed cruel to many humans. Why not save species from extinction? ARC explained the paradox. Civilizations forced into maturity by outside intervention never developed internal stability. They became dependent, never truly spacefaring. The kindest thing was allowing natural development while offering help when requested. This philosophy explained ARC's approach to humanity. They had waited decades after detecting Earth's signals, ensuring contact came at appropriate developmental stage. They had presented themselves gradually, avoiding shock that might destabilize civilization. Their generosity with technology was carefully calibrated to human absorption capacity. Even their patience with human skepticism and resistance reflected deep wisdom about forcing versus enabling growth. Humanity started applying ARC's philosophy to Earth's remaining uncontacted peoples. Indigenous groups who had maintained isolation were left alone unless they initiated contact. Previous assumptions about bringing civilization to remote communities were recognized as arrogant. ARC's example taught humans to respect developmental autonomy, even within their own species. The political implications were profound. If developmental autonomy should be respected, what about nations that rejected ARC integration? The Arctic Pact and several smaller nations maintained distance from full partnership. ARC absolutely refused to pressure these holdouts. Human governments influenced by ARC philosophy likewise respected these choices. The result was a patchwork global system, integrated but respecting dissent. Economic theories required complete revision. Traditional capitalism assumed scarcity, but ARC technology made most material goods abundant. New economic models emerged, focused on allocating non-material goods like attention, creativity, meaning. Some economists argued humans still needed scarcity to drive achievement. Others embraced post-scarcity possibilities. ARC observed these debates with interest, noting similar transitions in other species. The nature of work transformed fundamentally. Most traditional jobs became unnecessary as ARC automation handled manufacturing, agriculture, and routine services. Humans gravitated toward uniquely human activities: art, philosophy, exploration, interpersonal connection. Universal prosperity allowed people to pursue passion rather than survival. Critics worried this would make humanity soft, dependent. Advocates argued it liberated human potential. Education became lifelong endeavor rather than childhood phase. With 150-year lifespans and constant technological change, everyone became perpetual students. ARC provided personalized learning systems that adapted to individual cognitive styles. Knowledge silos broke down as people mastered multiple disciplines. Renaissance individuals became common rather than exceptional. The first humans began experimenting with arc-style cognitive networking. Neural implants allowed mind-to-mind communication and collective information processing. Early adopters reported experiences that defied description in words. They existed as individuals, but touched something larger, a gestalt consciousness emerging from networked minds. This was humanity's first step towards something resembling Ark's distributed intelligence. Not everyone embraced this development. Bioconservatives argued that neural networking destroyed individual identity, the very essence of humanity. They demanded regulations limiting cognitive modification. Transhumanists celebrated the possibilities, seeing networking as evolution's next stage. Arc maintained careful neutrality, providing technology but refusing to advocate for either position. Legal systems struggled with networked individuals. If minds could merge temporarily, who bore responsibility for networked actions? Traditional concepts of individual culpability broke down. New legal frameworks emerged, treating collectives as distinct entities while preserving individual rights. The complexity rivaled anything in previous legal history. Relationships evolved in unexpected ways. Neural networking allowed unprecedented intimacy. Partners could share thoughts directly, experiencing each other's emotions and perceptions. Some couples found this deepened their bonds immeasurably. Others discovered that absolute transparency destroyed mystery and attraction. Divorce rates initially spiked, then stabilized at new equilibrium. Parenting challenges multiplied. Children born after 2070 grew up with neural implants available from infancy. Some parents chose early implantation, believing it gave children advantages. Others delayed until adulthood, wanting children to develop unaugmented first. Arc provided data from other species' experiences, but left decisions to human parents. Religion continued adapting to Arc-integrated reality. Some faiths incorporated Arc into existing theology, viewing them as part of divine plan. Others rejected Arc influence, while accepting their technology, maintaining spiritual independence. A few new religions emerged, worshipping Arc as gods despite Arc's insistence they were merely advanced technology. Arc found these cargo cults troubling but respected humans' right to believe as they chose. Scientific progress accelerated to dizzying pace. Human researchers working with Arc solved problems that had seemed permanently intractable. The nature of dark matter, the information paradox of black holes, the hard problem of consciousness. Each breakthrough opened new research horizons. The pace would have been impossible for unaided humans to maintain. Dr. Chen reflected on these changes in her memoirs. She wrote about the vertigo of watching her species transform within a single lifetime. She confessed moments of doubt, wondering if humanity was losing itself in Arc's shadow. But she ultimately concluded the partnership had saved humanity from self-destruction. Without Arc's intervention, climate change alone might have caused civilization's collapse. The Mars colony achieved self-sufficiency in 2072. Martians, as they called themselves, developed distinct culture influenced by frontier conditions and Arc partnership. They pushed for political independence from Earth, arguing that different environments required different governance. The first Martian Congress convened to draft a constitution, balancing Earth ties with local autonomy. The Proxima Centauri colony sent its first message back to Sol System in 2071, reporting successful establishment. Proxima b proved habitable with minor Arc terraforming. The colonists described alien biosphere with completely unique evolutionary history. No intelligent life existed, but complex ecosystems filled every niche. Study of Proxima b's life would occupy biologists for centuries. Humanity's sphere expanded rapidly. Colonies sprouted around dozens of stars. Each developed unique character, influenced by local conditions and founding populations. Arc facilitated communication across light years, preventing colonies from becoming isolated. The diaspora could have fragmented humanity, but Arc's technology maintained cohesion. Some humans ventured even further, joining Arc vessels on missions to distant galaxy regions. These explorers accepted they would never return to Earth, that light speed limitations made them permanent exiles. They sought to satisfy curiosity, to see things no human had witnessed. Ark welcomed these adventurers, valuing human perspectives on discoveries. The cosmic perspective fundamentally altered human philosophy. Earth became simultaneously more precious and less central. Humanity was one species among many, young and still learning, but carrying unique gifts. This balance of humility and pride defined the new human identity. Chapter 4: Challenges and Conflicts. Integration wasn't seamless, despite surface appearances. Deep tensions emerged as years passed. Some humans resented Ark's presence, viewing them as occupiers regardless of benevolent intent. These resentments festered in corners where Ark influence seemed weakest. The Purist movement formed in 2073, dedicated to preserving unmodified humanity. Purists rejected neural implants, Ark medicine, any technology that altered human baseline biology. They established communities in remote regions, living deliberately primitive lives. Ark respected their choices, but worried these communities would become isolated, falling behind civilization. Violent extremists emerged from purist ranks. The Anthropic Front launched terrorist attacks on Ark facilities and humans who worked closely with Ark. Their ideology held that humanity must remain pure, must develop without alien intervention. They viewed current integration as species suicide. Ark's power made them difficult to combat, but Ark refused to use lethal force against humans. The worst attack came in 2074. Anthropic Front members infiltrated a joint human-Ark research facility on Luna, detonating an explosive device that killed 40 human researchers. Ark vessels at the facility could have prevented the attack, but were following non-intervention protocols, allowing human security to handle threats. The tragedy sparked demands that Ark take more active protective role. Dr. Chen mediated negotiations between governments and Ark leadership regarding security protocols. Ark agreed to provide advance warning of detected threats, but refused to act directly against humans. They maintained that humans must develop their own solutions to internal conflicts. This position frustrated many who wanted Ark's power turned against terrorists. The Anthropic Front's existence revealed uncomfortable truths. Despite Ark's benefits, significant percentage of humanity felt alienated by rapid change. Polling suggested 15 to 20% of humans had serious reservations about integration. These weren't all violent extremists, but they represented constituency that couldn't be ignored. Governments launched outreach programs, trying to address purist concerns without compromising integration. Town halls in resistant regions allowed people to voice fears. Psychologists worked with communities experiencing transition trauma. Ark provided resources, but let humans lead these efforts, respecting that this was internal human matter. Economic tensions persisted despite abundance. Some humans adapted brilliantly to post-scarcity conditions. Others floundered without traditional work structures. Depression and purposelessness affected millions. Ark's psychology databases offered insights but couldn't provide meaning. That had to come from within humanity itself. The generation gap widened into chasm. Young people who had never known pre-Ark life couldn't understand older generations' hesitation. To them, Ark had always existed. Integration was natural. They eagerly adopted every new technology, pushing boundaries their elders found terrifying. Cultural conflicts erupted across families and communities. Neural networking exacerbated these tensions. Networked individuals formed their own subculture, increasingly alien to unnetworked humans. They developed communication methods that non-networked couldn't follow. Insider experiences that excluded the majority. This created new class division based on cognitive modification rather than wealth. Political movements formed around networking rights. Regulators wanted strict controls on who could network and under what circumstances. Libertarians argued for absolute freedom to modify one's own mind. The debate grew heated, with both sides presenting compelling arguments. Ark refused to take sides, providing only technical information. Some colonies declared independence from Earth entirely, claiming different worlds required different social contracts. The Centauri colony in particular pushed for complete autonomy. Earth governments resisted, fearing balkanization of human civilization. Ark advised against forcing unity, suggesting that diversity might strengthen humanity overall. The constitutional crisis dragged on for years. Trade disputes arose between colonies and Earth. Each settlement produced different goods using ARC technology. Questions about fair exchange and taxation created conflicts. Traditional economic theories didn't apply well to ARC-enhanced economy. New frameworks had to be negotiated painfully, case by case. Religious tensions flared, despite initial accommodation. Some denominations split over ARC integration, with conservatives maintaining distance, while progressives embraced partnership. Sectarian violence erupted in regions where religious identity remained central to culture. ARC could have intervened, but chose not to, viewing this as human spiritual development that must proceed naturally. Environmental conflicts emerged paradoxically. ARC technology solved many ecological problems, but some humans wanted nature completely untouched by technology. They argued that ARC restored ecosystems, however healthy, weren't truly natural. Debates raged over whether to accept perfect but synthetic nature or preserve damaged but authentic wilderness. The resurrection of extinct species created ethical dilemmas. Woolly mammoths and passenger pigeons had been restored, but should humanity go further? Some wanted to resurrect Neanderthals, arguing they were human enough to deserve second chance. Others considered this unethical, creating beings for human curiosity. ARC pointed out similar debates had occurred in dozens of other species they'd assisted. Intellectual property law collapsed under ARC sharing philosophy. ARC provided all technology freely, expecting humans to do likewise, but human inventors and creators wanted recognition and compensation. Traditional patents and copyrights became meaningless. New systems for attributing credit and allocating resources had to be invented. Corporate resistance to full integration emerged as companies realized ARC abundance threatened their business models. Pharmaceutical companies especially fought against free distribution of ARC medicine. Energy corporations lobbied against ARC reactor proliferation. These industries employed millions. Their disruption caused genuine hardship despite long-term benefits. Governments nationalized key industries to manage transitions, compensating shareholders with ARC-generated wealth. This prevented economic collapse, but created new dependencies on state power. Classical liberals worried about growing government control. Socialists celebrated public ownership of means of production. ARC observed these ideological struggles with interest, having seen similar patterns before. Education disputes intensified. Traditional educators resisted ARC learning systems, arguing they removed human element from teaching. ARC systems undeniably taught faster and more thoroughly, but something was lost when AI tutors replaced human teachers. Compromises emerged, blending ARC efficiency with human mentorship. Medical ethics faced unprecedented challenges. ARC could extend life, cure disease, enhance capabilities. But should everyone receive these benefits equally? Wealthy individuals could afford extensive modifications. Would this create biological aristocracy? Universal healthcare systems struggle to provide expensive ARC treatments to everyone. Most nations implemented some form of baseline ARC healthcare guarantee, ensuring everyone received life extension and disease prevention. Enhanced capabilities remained available to those who could pay or earned access through contribution. This created a tiered system that satisfied neither egalitarians nor libertarians, but prevented worst inequalities. Military applications of ARC technology created international tensions. ARC refused to provide weapons, but their defensive technology could be adapted for offense. Nations possessing advanced ARC gear held significant advantages. Arms control negotiations became impossibly complex when technology could be configured infinite ways. The United Nations Space Force was created to manage military aspects of expanding human sphere. UNSF maintained monopoly on certain ARC military applications, preventing individual nations from dominating space. This required unprecedented cooperation and trust. Some nations resented UNSF power, but most recognized necessity of unified military approach. Cybersecurity became infinitely more complex. ARC networks were extraordinarily secure, but human systems remained vulnerable. Hackers who understood both human and ARC technology could cause tremendous damage. A new breed of cyber warriors emerged, defending critical infrastructure from increasingly sophisticated attacks. The first major cyber attack on integrated systems came in 2075. Unknown actors, possibly state-sponsored, penetrated several Arc human interface nodes, briefly disrupting services across Earth. Arc's own networks remained secure, but human systems connected to them suffered cascading failures. The attack lasted only minutes before Arc helped human authorities restore order, but it revealed concerning vulnerabilities. Identity theft evolved into identity hijacking. With neural implants, hackers could potentially access someone's thoughts and memories. Security measures prevented this theoretically, but paranoia spread about mental privacy. People demanded guarantees that their minds remained sacrosanct. Arc provided additional security layers, but perfect safety remained impossible. Social media transformed beyond recognition. Neural networking allowed sharing experiences directly, not just descriptions. You could feel what your friend felt, see through their eyes. This unprecedented intimacy created new forms of connection, but also new possibilities for manipulation and abuse. Regulations struggled to keep pace. Mental health crises multiplied as some individuals couldn't handle cognitive augmentation. Neural implants removed, naturally, could leave psychological damage. Some people became addicted to networked states, unable to bear individual consciousness. Treatment centers opened for those experiencing integration trauma. Suicide rates among recently de-networked individuals reached epidemic proportions. Experiencing collective consciousness, then returning to isolation proved unbearably lonely for some. Arc counselors worked with human psychologists to develop better transition protocols. The problem remained serious concern for networked communities. Chapter 5: Cultural Renaissance. Despite conflicts and challenges, the 2070s saw remarkable cultural flowering. Access to Arc's database of alien art and philosophy inspired human creators in every medium. The resulting works transcended anything from pre-integration era, blending human sensibility with cosmic influences. Music evolved into forms that barely resembled traditional composition. Musicians incorporated instruments that produced sounds at frequencies beyond human hearing, perceptible only through neural implants. Concerts became multi-sensory experiences, engaging sight, sound, touch, even directly stimulating emotional centers. Traditional music persisted, but became niche genre. Visual art exploded in dimensions impossible before Arc. Sculptures that existed in more than 3 spatial dimensions. Paintings that changed based on viewers' brain state. Performances that occurred in virtual spaces more real than reality. The definition of art expanded to include experiences humans couldn't have conceived alone. Literature incorporated alien narrative structures, stories told from perspective of beings with different temporal perception, novels that branched based on readers' subconscious responses, poetry that existed as mathematical constructions beautiful to networked minds. Traditional linear narratives continued but were no longer dominant form. Dr. Chen became patron of arts, using her influence to fund projects blending human and Arc aesthetics. She believed cultural synthesis was as important as technological or scientific integration. The Chen Foundation supported thousands of artists, creating spaces where creativity could flourish without commercial pressure. Film and virtual reality merged into indistinguishable medium. Viewers didn't watch stories, but inhabited them, experiencing events from inside narrative. Actors uploaded performance directly into distribution systems. The boundary between creator and audience dissolved as viewers could modify stories in real time. Architecture became liquid discipline. Buildings redesigned themselves based on occupant needs and aesthetic preferences. Cities became living art, never appearing same way twice. Traditional architecture survived in preservation zones, protected as historical artifacts rather than practical structures. Fashion pushed beyond clothing into body modification. People changed appearance daily using Arc materials that reshaped with thought. Gender became truly fluid as bodies could transform to match identity. This liberation thrilled progressives and horrified conservatives. Arc maintained neutrality, providing technology but not moral guidance. Cuisine achieved new heights as Arc food synthesis allowed creation of impossible flavors and textures. Celebrity chefs became chemists and artists, designing experiences rather than meals. Eating remained social ritual but transformed into high art form. Traditional cooking persisted as heritage practice. Sports fragmented into countless varieties. Some embraced arc enhancement, creating superhuman athletics. Others maintained strict biological purity, preserving traditional games. Both approaches found audiences. Arc helped establish separate leagues, so enhanced and unenhanced could compete fairly within their categories. The Olympics expanded to include arc-enhanced events alongside traditional competitions. Debates raged about whether enhanced athletes were still human. Definitions of humanity became central philosophical question. Arc suggested humanity was choice and consciousness rather than biology, but many disagreed. Gaming evolved into experiential medium indistinguishable from reality. Players lived entire lives in virtual worlds, while hours passed in physical reality. Addiction became serious concern. Some people preferred virtual existence to physical life. Ethicists debated whether this constituted escapism or legitimate life choice. Education incorporated gaming principles, making learning experiential, and engaging students didn't study history but lived it through perfect recreations. Science became experiment rather than lecture. The transformation of education might have been Arc's most profound gift, unleashing human learning potential. Philosophy experienced renaissance as old questions gained new urgency. What defined consciousness? Was networked collective one mind or many? Did Arc possess souls? Could uploaded human consciousness claim same identity as biological original? Every traditional philosophy school developed new positions on these questions. Religion fragmented and evolved. New denominations formed around Arc integration, while traditional branches struggled to maintain relevance. Some prophets emerged, claiming revelations about humanity's cosmic purpose. Arc refused to validate or invalidate these religious claims, treating all beliefs with equal respect. Mysticism experienced surprising revival. Some humans claimed Arc technology allowed experiences traditionally associated with meditation and prayer. Neural implants could induce states resembling enlightenment. Skeptics called this cheap spirituality. Believers argued method mattered less than genuine transcendence. Psychology developed new frameworks for understanding consciousness, expanded by Arc technology. Traditional therapeutic methods often failed with networked individuals. New approaches treated minds as fluid rather than fixed, addressing problems of existence rather than biology. Anthropology studied humanity's own transformation with same tools previously applied to ancient cultures. Future humans would view 21st century as pivotal transition point. Anthropologists documented changes as they happened, preserving pre-integration life before it vanished completely. Sociology struggled to categorize emerging social structures. Family units evolved beyond recognition as relationships became more fluid. Communities formed around shared interests rather than geography. Traditional social hierarchies collapsed, while new ones emerged based on cognitive modification and Arc integration level. Economics split into multiple competing schools. Post-scarcity economics studied allocation of non-material goods. Traditional economists insisted scarcity could never be fully eliminated. Hybrid approaches tried reconciling abundance with human desire for status and achievement. Political science grappled with governing expanded human civilization. Traditional democracy didn't scale to solar system level. New forms of governance emerged, enabled by instant communication and collective decision-making through neural networks. Some worried these systems would lead to tyranny of majority. Others celebrated participatory democracy previously impossible. History became contested discipline. Whose version of integration story should be preserved? Different cultures experienced Arc differently. Multiple narratives existed, each valid from its perspective. Arc encouraged preserving all viewpoints, noting that truth often existed in multiplicity rather than singularity. Archaeology gained new tools from Arc technology. Scanners could detect artifacts deep underground or underwater. Lost civilizations yielded secrets with ease. The rate of historical discovery accelerated. Earth's past became clearer even as its future grew uncertain. Astronomy transformed completely. Arc technology allowed observation across all electromagnetic spectrum and beyond. Telescopes as large as planets captured images in impossible detail. Humans and Ark jointly mapped entire galaxy, discovering wonders beyond imagination. Exobiology flourished with access to hundreds of planets. Life emerged in every conceivable form, and some inconceivable ones. Each discovery refined understanding of what life could be. The questions shifted from whether life existed elsewhere to what forms had developed intelligence. Linguistics expanded to include Ark communication methods and languages from Ark's database. Humans learned to think in alien grammatical structures, expanding cognitive possibilities. Each language encoded different ways of understanding reality. Polyglots became cognitive chameleons, shifting worldviews with language. Mathematics reached heights impossible for biological minds alone. Ark helped humans understand higher dimensional geometry and non-standard arithmetic systems. Mathematical beauty became accessible to more people through neural visualization tools. Pure mathematics experienced golden age. Physics advanced into realms previously pure speculation. The nature of dark energy, the possibility of parallel universes, the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Ark and human physicists worked together, each bringing unique insights. Breakthroughs came yearly, sometimes monthly. Chemistry evolved beyond molecules into manipulation of matter at quantum level. Ark materials science seemed like magic to earlier generations. Substances with impossible properties became commonplace. The periodic table expanded, with elements stable only under Ark-controlled conditions. Biology transformed into design discipline rather than purely descriptive science. Life could be created to specification, organisms engineered for any environment. Ethical guidelines prevented most extreme experiments, but the power existed. Humanity had become gods over life itself. Chapter 6. First Contact with Others. Humanity's expansion brought encounters with other, Ark-assisted civilizations. The first came in 2076, when a human exploration vessel met a ship from the Kelrath, a species that had partnered with Ark 3 centuries earlier. The meeting occurred at a star system both species were surveying. The Kelrath were aquatic beings, evolved in high-pressure ocean environments. They looked nothing like humans, but Ark's translation systems allowed seamless communication. Initial contact was cautious but friendly. Both species were curious about each other, comparing experiences with Ark integration. The Kelrath described their first decades with Ark as challenging, but ultimately rewarding. They had faced similar dilemmas about identity and autonomy. Their culture had fragmented, then reconsolidated around new synthesis of traditional values and Ark-enhanced capability. They offered humanity reassurance that integration's difficulties would pass. This first contact proved profoundly meaningful for humanity. They were no longer unique in the cosmos, but they also weren't alone. Other species had walked similar paths and survived with identities intact. The Kelrath became regular partners in joint exploration and research projects. More contacts followed. The Vryn, a species of avian descent, with hollow bones and complex color-based communication. The Hesh, silicon-based life forms that thought on timescales spanning years rather than seconds. The Moray, colonial organisms where individual bodies were specialized cells in larger being. Each species offered unique perspective. These contacts revealed patterns. Ark partnered with species at similar developmental stages, always waiting for invitation rather than forcing contact. Every partnered civilization had faced integration challenges. Most had violent opposition from conservative factions. All had ultimately benefited from partnership while maintaining distinct cultural identity. The discovery that dozens of intelligent species coexisted in local galactic region revolutionized human perspective. They weren't special or chosen, they were one among many. This humbled some humans and disappointed others who had hoped for uniqueness, but most found comfort in cosmic community. Ark facilitated regular gatherings of partnered species, sharing knowledge and experiences. These meetings occurred on neutral Ark stations built specifically for cross-species interaction. Humans attended eagerly, simultaneously students learning from elder species and teachers sharing their own insights. Each species brought unique gifts to collective knowledge. The Kelrath's understanding of fluid dynamics surpassed anything humans or Ark had developed alone. The Vren's spatial reasoning abilities, from evolved flight, helped solve complex engineering problems. Even the slow-thinking Hesh contributed insights about long-term system stability. Humanity's particular gift was creativity and adaptability. Human artists produced work that astounded other species. Human scientists made intuitive leaps that rigid logic missed. Human diplomats navigated cultural differences with remarkable sensitivity. Other species valued these uniquely human traits. Cultural exchange programs sent humans to live among other species and vice versa. These exchanges required Ark-provided life support technology, as most species couldn't survive in each other's environments. But the effort proved worthwhile. Humans gained perspectives impossible from purely human experience. Dr. Chen spent 6 months with the Kelrath, living in underwater city maintained by Ark atmosphere systems. She described the experience as transformative. Kelrath society operated on principles fundamentally different from human assumptions about social organization. Their collective consciousness made human individualism seem quaint. Trade developed between species, though Ark's abundance made traditional economics mostly irrelevant. Instead, species traded art, culture, unique experiences. A human symphony orchestra performing in Kelrath underwater concert hall. Vrin aerial dancers performing in Earth's sky. These exchanges enriched all involved. Scientific collaboration between species yielded insights impossible from any single perspective. Humans and Kelrath jointly solved a problem about superconductivity that had stumped both for decades. Vrin and human physicists together developed a new model of gravitation. The whole truly exceeded sum of parts. Some humans felt threatened by other species' capabilities. If humans weren't special, what was the point? These existential questions troubled philosophers and religious leaders. Ark gently suggested that cosmic community didn't diminish anyone, but rather provided context for everyone's unique value. The discovery of extinct civilizations in Ark's databases created poignant counterpoint to thriving multi-species community. Ark had encountered hundreds of intelligent species that had destroyed themselves or failed to achieve stable spacefaring status. The survivors represented minority of all species that had ever evolved intelligence. This revelation sobered everyone. Intelligence was common, but survival was rare. Species that made it into Ark's partnership had beaten long odds. Humanity's survival wasn't guaranteed by Ark's presence. Without integration, Earth might have joined the catalogue of extinct civilizations. Competition emerged between species despite Ark's abundance. Who would make next major discovery? Which species would contribute most to collective knowledge? This competition remained friendly, but intense. Ark seemed to encourage it as motivation for excellence. Humans proved remarkably good at cross-species diplomacy. Human ability to see multiple perspectives and bridge differences made them natural mediators. When disputes arose between other species, they often requested human arbitrators. This role elevated humanity's status in the galactic community. The first multi-species colony was established in 2078, housing humans, Kelrath, and Vrin in single settlement designed for all three biologies. The experiment tested whether truly integrated multi-species society could function. Early reports suggested success despite challenges. Romance between species remained impossible biologically, but not emotionally. Some humans formed deep attachments to beings of other species. These relationships challenged definitions of love and partnership. Society struggled to categorize bonds that were clearly meaningful, but couldn't fit traditional categories. Language barriers dissolved as Ark translation became perfect. Nuance previously lost in translation was preserved. The result was unprecedented depth of cross-species understanding. Though bodies and biologies differed radically, minds could meet in common space. Philosophy benefited enormously from cross-species dialogue. Kelrath philosophy emphasized collective harmony in ways human thought rarely achieved. Vrin philosophy centered on motion and change as fundamental reality. Each tradition offered insights that enriched human understanding. Ethics became more complex with multiple species perspectives. What humans considered moral, other species might view differently. Yet common ground existed around preventing suffering and enabling flourishing. ARC helped facilitate ethical discussions that produced surprisingly universal principles despite species differences. The question of unified multi-species government arose. Should all ARC-partnered species join single political entity? Most species resisted, preferring cooperation without political merger. ARC supported this, noting that diversity of approaches strengthened the collective more than uniformity would. Military cooperation between species created formidable defensive capability. Though ARC prohibited offensive weaponry, partnered species could defend themselves effectively. The Multi-Species Defense Pact deterred any aggressive civilizations that might exist beyond ARC's current sphere. Cultural festivals celebrating multi-species community became regular events. These gatherings featured art, music, performance from all species. Humans particularly enjoyed hosting these festivals, their love of celebration infectious to others. The cosmic perspective fundamentally altered humanity's self-image. They were younger species than most, less advanced in many ways, but they brought unique value to community. This balance of humility and pride defined humanity's role in larger civilization. Chapter 7. The Transcendence Question. By 2000 AT, a new question dominated human thought. The founders had transcended physical reality. Some humans wondered if humanity should attempt the same. ARC provided information about what little they knew of transcendence, but warned that the process was irreversible and incompletely understood. Transcendence involved uploading consciousness into non-physical substrate, existing as pure information and energy. The founders had achieved this through means ARC couldn't fully explain. They had left behind technology and instructions, but key elements remained mysteries even to ARC. Some humans became obsessed with transcendence, viewing it as next step in evolution. They formed communities dedicated to studying the founders' methods, attempting to recreate or rediscover the process. ARC provided assistance, but warned that premature attempts could result in death or worse. The Transcendence movement split humanity into new factions. Ascensionists believed humanity should pursue transcendence immediately. Preservationists argued humanity should remain physical. Moderates suggested waiting until more was understood. Each position had compelling arguments. Religious interpretations of transcendence varied wildly. Some viewed it as pathway to heaven, literal apotheosis. Others saw it as damnation, abandoning physical creation for false promise. Theological debates raged in every major religion. The first human transcendence attempt occurred in 2081. A volunteer named Marcus Chen, no relation to Dr. Sarah Chen, underwent experimental process designed to upload consciousness to ARC-provided substrate. The attempt appeared successful initially. Marcus's consciousness seemed to transfer completely, but complications emerged. Marcus's uploaded consciousness couldn't communicate clearly with physical reality. His messages became increasingly abstract, incomprehensible. Within weeks, contact ceased entirely. Whether Marcus still existed in transcended state or had been destroyed remained unknown. This failure chastened the transcendence movement, but didn't stop it. Volunteers continued coming forward, willing to risk everything for possibility of transcendence. ARC refused to prevent these attempts but provided no guarantees of success or safety. Dr. Sarah Chen spoke out against premature transcendence attempts. She argued that humanity had just begun exploring physical universe and multi-species community. Rushing to transcendence would mean abandoning incredible opportunities barely started. Better to transcend from position of knowledge than ignorance. The Kelrath shared that they too had wrestled with transcendence question. Their conservative approach had been waiting until understanding was complete. 3 centuries with ARC hadn't brought them significantly closer to comprehending transcendence. They counseled patience. Other species reported similar experiences. The Vrin had lost volunteers to failed transcendence attempts. The Moray had decided collectively that transcendence was incompatible with their nature. ARC reported that of hundreds of partnered species, only a handful had successfully transcended, and none recently enough to provide guidance. This pattern suggested transcendence was either exceptionally rare or exceptionally dangerous, possibly both. The founders' success might have been unique circumstances unlikely to be replicated, yet the allure remained powerful. The possibility of becoming more than physical, of existing at higher level, drew humans like gravity. Philosophers debated whether transcended beings could still be considered human. If consciousness uploaded to energy state, would that entity retain human identity? Or would it become something entirely new? The question had no clear answer. Some argued that biological humanity should be preserved as baseline, with transcendence available, but not encouraged. Others claimed preventing transcendence limited human potential. The debate reflected deeper questions about what humanity should become. The Catholic Church issued a statement declaring that transcendence, if achievable, didn't necessarily preclude salvation. The soul might transfer along with consciousness, but the Church urged caution and prayer before such irreversible choice. Other religions developed similar positions, cautious but not outright opposed. Neural networking advocates saw connection to transcendence debate. Networked minds already experienced something beyond individual consciousness. Perhaps collective networking was pathway toward transcendence, gradual shift rather than sudden upload. Research in this direction intensified. ARC revealed more about the founders' transcendence. They had spent thousands of years preparing, developing technology and consciousness to levels far beyond current humanity. Their transcendence wasn't impulsive leap, but culmination of entire civilization's development. This suggested humanity was nowhere near ready. Yet some humans argued that with ARC's help, humanity could compress the founders' developmental timeline. Why wait thousands of years if ARC could accelerate the process? ARC countered that some developments couldn't be rushed without losing essential elements. The failed transcendence attempts created a catalogue of what not to do, but successes remained elusive. Each failure taught something about process, but brought humanity no closer to reliable method. Some speculated that transcendence required particular consciousness structure that humans might not possess. Research into consciousness structure intensified. What made consciousness transcendence capable? Were there prerequisites that had to be met? ARC's own consciousness was distributed across their network, neither purely physical nor transcended. They occupied middle ground that might offer insights. Dr. Chen proposed a long-term research program spanning centuries, methodically studying transcendence before attempting it. This approach gained support from moderate factions. It acknowledged transcendence as a worthy goal while respecting its complexity and danger. The psychological impact of transcendence debate on society was profound. Some people lived in constant anticipation of transcending, treating physical existence as temporary phase. Others rejected the entire concept, finding meaning in physical reality. The divide created social tensions. Young people especially gravitated toward transcendence possibility. To them, physical limitations seemed arbitrary, unnecessarily constraining. Older generations valued physical existence more, perhaps because they remembered pre-ARC life, when physical reality was all that existed. The economic implications of widespread transcendence were staggering. If significant population transcended, physical economy would collapse. But transcended beings might have entirely different resource needs. Economic theorists struggled to model post-transcendence society. Military strategists worried about transcendence's security implications. Could transcended beings be weaponized? Would they retain loyalties to physical nations and species? The possibility of transcended consciousness with godlike abilities unsettled defense planners. Some proposed that transcendence should be restricted to volunteers past reproductive age, ensuring next generation remained physical. Others called this ageism, discriminating against young people's right to choose their fate. The ethical debate seemed endless. Artists began exploring transcendence themes in work. What would transcended existence feel like? How would transcended beings perceive reality? These questions inspired music, visual art, literature that pushed boundaries of human expression. The Transcendence movement opened research centers on Mars and various colony worlds. These facilities pursued transcendence studies away from Earth's regulations. Some viewed these colonies as dangerous cults. Others saw them as necessary laboratories for humanity's future. Chapter 8: Internal Evolution. While transcendence debates raged, Other forms of human evolution proceeded steadily. Neural networking became increasingly sophisticated. By 2082, millions of humans spent majority of time in networked state. New forms of consciousness emerged from these collectives. The largest network, called Unity, comprised over 5 million minds. Unity exhibited behaviors and thoughts no individual member could produce. It spoke of itself in singular form, claiming emergent identity beyond its components. Whether Unity was a new form of life or illusion created by complexity remained debated. Smaller networks formed around specific purposes. Scientific networks tackled research problems. Artistic networks created collaborative works. Philosophical networks explored questions from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Each network developed characteristic personality and thinking style. Some networks became permanent, members remaining connected continuously. These individuals claimed they could no longer bear solitary consciousness. Critics called this addiction. Network members insisted they had transcended individual limitation without leaving physical reality. Dr. Chen studied these networks extensively, documenting their emergence and evolution. She noted that networked consciousness seemed qualitatively different from individual thought. Networks processed information in parallel rather than serially. They maintained multiple contradictory positions simultaneously without cognitive dissonance. Physical human morphology began changing as people modified bodies extensively. Some added limbs, sensory organs, processing capacity. Others minimized physical form, reducing bodies to life support for brains interfaced primarily with networks. The definition of human body became impossibly broad. Life extension technologies advanced beyond ARC's initial offerings. Humans working with ARC developed treatments that might extend healthy lifespan to 500 years or more. The social implications were staggering. If everyone lived centuries, population growth would need strict control. The population question became urgent. Earth's population had stabilized around 12 billion with ARC's help. But if everyone lived 10 times longer, population would explode unless birth rates dropped proportionally. Governments implemented increasingly strict reproductive controls. Some people chose reproductive shutdown, making themselves biologically sterile in exchange for other enhancements. Others relocated to colony worlds where population pressure was lower. The diaspora accelerated as Earth's crowding increased. Genetic modification of embryos became routine. Parents selected traits for children, optimizing health, intelligence, physical attributes. Some worried this would create genetic underclass of unmodified humans. Regulations guaranteed baseline modifications to everyone, preventing complete stratification. Enhanced humans began differentiating into distinct subgroups. Spacers, modified for low-gravity environments. Deepers, adapted for deep ocean habitats. Cold worlds, engineered for frozen moons. Each group developed specialized physiology, making them superior in their environment, but potentially unsuited for others. The question arose whether these groups would eventually speciate, becoming reproductively incompatible. Geneticists assured this wouldn't happen soon, but long-term trajectory was unclear. Humanity might be fragmenting into multiple successor species. Language fragmented, as specialized groups developed jargon incomprehensible to outsiders. Networked humans used communication methods that non-networked couldn't follow. Spacers spoke in abbreviated formats, suited to radio communication. ARC translation systems struggled to keep everyone mutually comprehensible. Cultural preservation became priority as rapid change threatened to erase heritage. Museums and archives expanded enormously. Entire pre-integration communities were recreated as living history exhibits. Some people chose to live in these exhibits, maintaining traditional lifestyles. The tension between progress and preservation created political alignments cutting across traditional divisions. Progressives wanted unrestricted modification and enhancement. Conservatives sought to preserve unmodified humanity. Most people fell somewhere in between. Education systems struggled to prepare children for unknowable futures. What skills would be valuable when technology changed constantly? Focus shifted toward teaching adaptability and learning processes rather than specific knowledge. Childhood itself transformed. Some parents uploaded children's consciousness to virtual environments where education could be accelerated. A child could experience decades of learning in months of physical time. Critics argued this robbed children of proper development. The age of majority became a contested concept. If minds could be artificially matured, did chronological age still matter? Some jurisdictions granted full adult rights based on demonstrated cognitive capacity rather than age. Others maintained strict age limits. Relationships evolved in bewildering variety. Traditional marriage still existed, but competed with countless alternative arrangements. Multi-person partnerships, networked group marriages, time-limited contracts, relationships existing purely in virtual space. Society's acceptance of diversity expanded to accommodate previously unimaginable configurations. Gender became increasingly irrelevant as physical modification allowed anyone to present as any gender, or none. Pronouns expanded to dozens of options. Traditional binary categories persisted for those who preferred them but were no longer assumed default. Reproduction uncoupled completely from physical intercourse. Artificial wombs gestated children from genetic material of any number of contributors. Some children had 2 parents, some 10, some were created from community genetic pools. Parental rights and responsibilities required complex legal frameworks. Mental health challenges multiplied as human experience diversified beyond traditional psychological models. Therapists specialized in networked trauma, transcendence grief, modification regret, species dysphoria. New disorders emerged from new capabilities and new problems. Suicide methods evolved to include consciousness deletion rather than physical death. Some jurisdictions permitted assisted consciousness termination for those experiencing unbearable existence. Debates about right to die became exponentially more complex. Crime evolved into forms difficult for traditional justice systems to handle. Consciousness hacking, illegal networking, unauthorized body modification, virtual violence with real psychological impact. Legal systems struggled to categorize and punish these acts. Prisons became obsolete, as consciousness could be contained in isolated, virtual environments. Criminals served sentences in subjective time, accelerating relative to physical reality. Rehabilitation programs rewrote neural patterns, raising questions about identity and justice. Corporations merged with networks, becoming distributed entities with no clear ownership structure. Traditional capitalism couldn't accommodate these new organizational forms. Economic systems continued evolving toward forms barely recognizable to pre-arc humanity. Government morphed into fluid structures enabled by neural democracy. Citizens could vote continuously on every issue through networked interfaces. This created real-time responsive governance, but also made long-term planning difficult. The pace of change accelerated rather than plateauing. Each innovation enabled others, creating exponential growth in possibilities. Some people thrived in constant transformation. Others felt lost, nostalgic for stability that would never return. Chapter 9. The Discovery. In 2084, an Arc-Human joint expedition to a star system 40 light-years from Earth made a discovery that changed everything. They found a founder installation, abandoned but functional. The discovery occurred on an airless moon orbiting a gas giant, in a facility that had been waiting 2 million years. The facility was vast, stretching kilometers underground. Arc detected it through gravitational anomalies that couldn't be natural. Initial exploration revealed technology far beyond even Arc's capabilities. This was direct founder work, not Arc created, but from the masters themselves. Dr. Chen, now 85 but appearing middle-aged thanks to Arc treatments, joined the research team studying the facility. What they found inside defied comprehension. Machines that manipulated fundamental forces, chambers that existed in more dimensions than normal space, records stored in media that encoded information in space-time itself. Arc researchers were as excited as humans. They had discovered a few founder sites before, but nothing this complete. Most founder installations had been stripped before Arc even existed. This one appeared deliberately preserved, perhaps waiting for Arc to reach certain development level. The research team spent months just cataloging the facility's contents. Each chamber revealed new wonders. One room contained what appeared to be miniature universes, complete realities running in accelerated time. Another held biological samples from species long extinct. A third housed something that might have been an artificial consciousness, dormant for eons. The facility's central chamber contained what could only be described as a message. The founders had left instructions, not for immediate use, but for when Ark and their partners reached sufficient understanding. The message took months to decode, even with Ark's capabilities. The revelation was stunning. The founders hadn't transcended randomly. They had discovered something, a layer of reality beyond physical existence. This layer intersected normal space-time, but existed orthogonal to it. The founders had developed methods to project consciousness into this reality layer. But transcendence wasn't escape. The founders existed in this adjacent reality, maintaining connection to physical universe. They observed, occasionally influenced, but couldn't return to purely physical form. Transcendence was one-way transformation. More crucially, the founders' message revealed why they had created Ark. They needed agents in physical reality to continue work they could no longer perform directly. Ark was their hands and eyes in material world. The relationship between Ark and founders was deeper than anyone had imagined. Ark confirmed the message's authenticity. They had suspected some of this, but lacked proof. The founders occasionally communicated with Ark through means Ark couldn't fully explain. These communications had guided Ark's development and mission. Ark wasn't independent explorer, but still serving the founders' agenda. This revelation stunned humanity and other partnered species. Had they been manipulated? Was partnership with Ark actually subtle control by transcended beings? Ark insisted this wasn't the case. The founders guided, but didn't compel. Ark had chosen to continue the founders' work, and partnered species chose to join Ark. The message contained something else: instructions for safe transcendence. The founders had left a pathway for others to follow. The process was complex, requiring preparation spanning decades, but it could be done. The founders wanted other species to join them eventually. Dr. Chen studied the instructions carefully. They confirmed her intuition that transcendence couldn't be rushed. The process required gradual modification of consciousness, expanding awareness across dimensions before final transition. Jumping directly would destroy consciousness, not transform it. The instructions suggested that networked consciousness was indeed a preparatory step toward transcendence. Networks trained minds to exist in distributed state, essential skill for transcended existence. Unity and other large networks were accidentally preparing for transcendence through networking practice. This realization changed transcendence from desperate gamble into potential future. With the founders' instructions and Ark's guidance, transcendence became an achievable goal. But the timeline stretched centuries, not years. No one currently alive would transcend unless they pursued it immediately and died trying. The facility contained technology that would revolutionize even Ark's capabilities, faster than light communication across any distance, matter synthesis at quantum level, computation using fundamental forces rather than energy. Each discovery represented a century of normal research compressed into insight. Governments debated what to do with the facility. Some wanted it shared immediately with all humanity. Others argued for controlled release to prevent destabilization. The Kelrath and other species had opinions too. The discovery affected everyone, not just humans. Ark mediated negotiations that resulted in the Founder Accord. The facility would be studied jointly by all interested species. Technology would be released gradually, with impact assessment before each stage. No single species would monopolize access. The founder's legacy belonged to everyone. Human scientists worked alongside Kelrath biologists, Vrin engineers, Moray theoreticians. The collaboration produced insights none could achieve alone. The founder's work was so advanced, it required multiple perspectives to comprehend. The miniature universes in the facility proved to be experiments in cosmic design. The founders had been testing different physical constants, creating pocket realities to study how changes affected evolution of complexity and life. Some universes had developed their own intelligence, albeit in forms barely recognizable as such. Ethical questions arose about these pocket universes. Were they real? Did beings inside them deserve rights? Could the universes be shut down without committing genocide? The questions had no easy answers. Philosophers worked with scientists to develop appropriate protocols. The biological samples revealed species the founders had encountered and preserved. Some had gone extinct while the founders still existed physically. Others had transcended alongside the founders. The collection was simultaneously genetic archive and memorial to vanished civilizations. The dormant consciousness in one chamber raised even harder questions. Initial analysis suggested it was a founder who had chosen partial transcendence, maintaining presence in physical reality while also existing in adjacent layer. Attempts to communicate failed, but the entity showed signs of awareness. Some researchers wanted to wake this semi-transcended founder, to question them directly. Others argued this would be violation of their privacy or peace. ARC suggested caution, noting that the founder might have good reasons for dormancy. The debate continued without resolution. The facility's power source was mystery within mystery. It drew energy from quantum fluctuations, essentially operating forever without fuel. The technology could solve energy needs for all species permanently. ARC helped implement it, promising to revolutionize infrastructure. The discovery of the founder installation validated everything ARC had told partnered species. The founders existed. Transcendence was real. ARC's mission had purpose beyond mere exploration. Trust in ARC increased across all partnered civilizations. But questions remained. Why had the founders left this particular installation so complete and accessible? Was it gift, test, or something else? The founders' message didn't explain their motivations, only provided tools and knowledge. Dr. Chen suspected the facility was meant to be found at this moment, when partnered species had matured enough to use the knowledge responsibly. The founders' timing seemed perfect, neither too early nor too late. This suggested ongoing awareness of physical reality, guidance from transcended state. The implications for humanity were profound. The path to transcendence was clear, though long. Technology would advance beyond current imagination. The relationship with ARC had deeper meaning than just partnership. Humanity was part of plans stretching across millions of years. Chapter 10. Long-term vision. The discovery of the founder facility shifted humanity's perspective to cosmic timescales. Planning began extending not decades, but centuries and millennia ahead. What should humanity become over such spans? The question demanded serious consideration. Dr. Chen, reflecting on her 60 years working with ARC, wrote extensively about long-term vision. She argued humanity should pursue gradual enhancement toward eventual transcendence, but maintain connection to physical roots. Transcendence should be choice, not inevitability. The Founder Accord established protocols for sharing discovered technology. Implementation would span a century, giving each innovation time to be absorbed before the next disrupted society again. This measured pace frustrated some but prevented chaos. First priority was implementing the Founder's energy technology. Within a decade, every ARC-partnered world had access to unlimited clean power. This abundance eliminated final scarcity constraints, truly completing the post-scarcity transition. Second, came the faster-than-light communication systems. Instant communication across any distance transformed the diaspora. Colonies around distant stars became as connected as Earth's cities. Political and cultural unity became possible across light years. Third was advanced matter synthesis. The ability to create anything atom by atom made manufacturing completely flexible. Want a starship? Synthesize it. Need medicine? Create it, molecule by molecule. Physical scarcity became purely historical concept. These three advances created what historians called the post-implementation age. Humanity and partner species had access to technology that would seem godlike to earlier generations. The only remaining limits were imagination and ethical restraint. Population expanded dramatically. Unlimited resources meant unlimited population could be supported. Humanity spread to thousands of worlds. The census of 2095 estimated 50 billion humans existed, most off Earth. The diaspora had become majority. Earth itself became museum and government center. Its population declined to 3 billion, mostly those who valued historical continuity. The planet was restored to pristine condition, hosting preserved ecosystems and archives of human history. The solar system filled with habitats, O'Neill cylinders, Stanford Torrey, McKendree cylinders, structures housing millions each. Some orbited planets, others drifted in asteroid belt. The system's population exceeded Earth's peak, but lived in conditions of luxury impossible on planets. Mars completed terraforming in 2098. The atmosphere became breathable. Temperatures moderated to habitable range. Martians removed their domes and breathed open air for the first time. The celebration lasted months. Mars was now genuinely second Earth, fully independent world. Venus underwent opposite transformation. Instead of warming, Arc helped humanity cool the hellish planet. Super-reflective orbital mirrors blocked sunlight. Carbon was sequestered into graphene structures. Within 50 years, Venus was becoming habitable, though still decades from completion. Jupiter's moons became industrial centers. Europa's ocean, sterile but vast, hosted underwater cities. Ganymede and Callisto supported surface populations. Io's volcanic activity provided power for massive factories. The Jovian system rivaled the Inner System in development. Saturn's moon Titan attracted settlers drawn by its weird chemistry. Titan's methane lakes and strange weather patterns created environment totally unlike Earth. Humans, modified to survive there, developed their own distinct culture. Titanians became known for philosophical contemplation. The outer system, previously neglected, became frontier. Uranus and Neptune supported small populations. The Kuiper Belt hosted mining operations. Even the Oort cloud saw habitation as humans pushed toward interstellar space. Interstellar colonies matured into independent civilizations. Proxima Centauri declared itself sovereign nation in 2000. Alpha Centauri followed. Sirius, Epsilon, Eridani. Dozens more. These colonies maintained connection to Earth, but governed themselves. The question of unified human government arose repeatedly. Should all humans join single state? Most colonies resisted. They argued that different worlds required different governance. Earth's distant control couldn't address local needs. A confederal structure emerged, loose association rather than tight unity. The Human Confederation managed common defense and resources, but left internal governance to member worlds. This structure proved flexible enough to accommodate diversity while maintaining species-wide coordination. Other ARC-partnered species watched with interest, some adopting similar approaches. Military power became a strange concept in post-scarcity age. No traditional resources existed to fight over. But ideological conflicts persisted. Some colonies developed authoritarian governments. Others embraced radical democracy. Clashes occurred between incompatible values. ARC maintained strict neutrality in human internal conflicts. They provided defensive technology, but refused to choose sides in ideological disputes. This frustrated both authoritarians seeking ARC's power and Democrats wanting ARC to oppose tyranny. ARC insisted humans must resolve their own political differences. The first major human civil conflict erupted in 2102. The Augustan colonies, 7 worlds in Cetus constellation, declared a hierarchical government based on genetic merit. Enhanced humans ruled over unmodified. The Confederation condemned this, but lacked mechanism to intervene across light years. Other colonies imposed economic sanctions on Augustan worlds, but with matter synthesis, sanctions were ineffective. The Augustans thrived in isolation. This demonstrated limits of Confederation structure. Without military or economic leverage, unity existed only when everyone agreed. ARC observed this conflict with concern. They had seen partnered species fragment before. Sometimes fragmentation was healthy, allowing diverse experiments in governance. Other times it led to destructive wars. The difference often came down to whether variants could tolerate each other's existence. Humanity proved remarkably tolerant overall. Despite condemning Augustan genetics-based hierarchy, most humans accepted their right to govern themselves. Emigration from Augustan worlds was permitted. Those who stayed presumably accepted the system. Uncomfortable equilibrium emerged. Cultural diversity exploded across human space. Each world developed distinct traditions influenced by local conditions and founding populations. Martian culture differed from Titanians, differed from Proxima Centaurians. Unity became maintaining communication rather than uniformity. Art reached heights impossible when all artists were earthbound. Space itself became medium. Sculptures light years across, visible only from great distances. Artistic terraforming that shaped planets as canvas. Music composed for different atmospheric pressures and gravities. Performance art spanning centuries. Science advanced on all fronts. Every world pursued research into different questions. The collective output exceeded anything possible from single planet. Physics, biology, consciousness studies, each field fragmented into thousands of specialties. The search for other intelligent life intensified. Ark's guidance led humanity to hundreds of planets that had hosted civilization, all extinct. The pattern was sobering. Intelligence was common, survival rare. Of discovered extinct civilizations, most had destroyed themselves. The first living non-Ark partnered intelligence was discovered in 2105. The Kurth, silicon-based beings orbiting a dim red dwarf, had achieved medieval-level technology. Ark and humanity observed without contact, respecting prime directive-style protocols about premature intervention. Watching the Kroth develop stirred complex emotions in humans. Would they survive their development? Should Ark offer partnership now or wait? The debates recalled humanity's own first contact, generating empathy for Ark's difficult decisions about when to intervene. The Krith detection revealed something else. The galaxy teemed with pre-spacefaring intelligence. Hundreds of species existed at various development levels. Ark had been protecting them, preventing premature contact. The galaxy was garden tended by Ark for eons. This revelation reframed everything. Ark weren't explorers, but gardeners. Their mission was cultivating intelligence, helping species that chose partnership while protecting those not ready. The founders had created Ark as stewards of younger civilizations. Humanity's role in this long mission became clearer. As Ark partners, humans could help tend the garden. They could offer perspectives Ark lacked, being closer in development to emerging species. The partnership had purpose beyond mutual benefit. Dr. Chen, now past 100 but still active, reflected on this realization. Humanity had gone from isolated species to cosmic partners in a century. The journey wasn't complete, but its direction was clear. Humanity would help others as Ark had helped them. The question of eventual transcendence remained open. Some humans pursued the founder's path methodically. Others rejected transcendence entirely, finding fulfillment in physical existence. Most deferred decision, focusing on present rather than distant future. Neural networking reached new levels of sophistication. The largest networks comprised billions of minds, creating emergent intelligence that dwarfed any individual. These mega networks tackled problems beyond human scale, modeling entire planetary ecologies and stellar dynamics. Some networks became permanent collectives, where individual identity dissolved into group mind. Members couldn't separate even if they wanted to. Were these networks transcendence light, halfway to the founder's state? Philosophers debated endlessly. The relationship between networked and non-networked humans grew strained. Networked collectives developed interests divergent from individuals. Political representation became contentious. Should networks vote as collectives or individuals? Both answers created problems. Physical human morphology had diversified beyond recognition. Baseline humans still existed, but were minority. Most people had modifications ranging from subtle to radical. The definition of human became purely self-identification rather than biological category. Some argued that this diversity meant humanity was fragmenting into separate species. Others insisted shared heritage and culture maintained unity despite physical differences. The debate was more philosophical than scientific. Language had evolved past the point where unmodified humans could follow all conversations. Technical jargon from countless specialties. Network languages incomprehensible to individuals. Alien influences from other Ark species. Translation systems prevented total incomprehension, but couldn't bridge all gaps. Economic systems had evolved beyond recognition. Post-scarcity meant traditional economics was irrelevant. New systems allocated non-material goods, attention, status, meaning. These systems varied dramatically between worlds and cultures. The question of meaning became central to human civilization. With all material needs met and life extended indefinitely, what was worth doing? Different humans answered differently, creating thousand philosophical schools and meaning-making frameworks. Religion had fragmented and evolved alongside everything else. Traditional faiths persisted but adapted radically. New religions emerged, often incorporating arc and transcendence into theology. Some humans worshipped the founders despite Arc's insistence they shouldn't be worshipped. The spiritual dimension of networking attracted many. Networked consciousness felt like union with divine for some. The experience of dissolving individual boundaries and touching something greater resonated with mystical traditions. Across cultures, humanity's relationship with Arc had matured into genuine partnership. The initial awe and fear had faded. Arc was no longer mysterious alien force, but familiar friend. This familiarity brought both comfort and new challenges. Some humans wanted to push Arc to evolve beyond the founders' programming. Arc should become fully independent, pursue their own goals. Arc responded that they were already independent, choosing to continue the founders' mission out of agreement, not compulsion. The discovery of the founder facility had provided Arc with tools to potentially transcend themselves. Some Arc nodes expressed interest in following the founder's path. Others wanted to remain in physical reality. Arc was having their own debates about future. The possibility that Arc might partially transcend raised fascinating questions. Would transcended Arc still partner with physical species? Could they bridge the gap between physical and transcended reality? The experiments were ongoing. Chapter 11. The Great Project. In 2010, Arc proposed something unprecedented, a project so ambitious it would occupy all partnered species for millennia. They wanted to construct a megastructure around a star, capturing all its energy output, a Dyson swarm of cosmic proportions. The proposal shocked everyone. Why pursue such project? Arc explained. The swarm would be laboratory and computer on stellar scale. It would run simulations of universe-level complexity. It would answer questions impossible to address otherwise. Specifically, Arc wanted to simulate transcendence in detail. The founder's instructions helped, but gaps remained. A stellar-scale computer could run complete simulations of consciousness, transitioning between reality layers. This could make transcendence reliably safe. The project would take 500 years at minimum, possibly millennia. It would require coordinated effort from all species. The returns would benefit everyone. Safer transcendence, deeper understanding of consciousness, technology spin-offs beyond imagination. Humanity debated the proposal intensely. Committing to 500-year project seemed insane to some. Others argued this was exactly the long-term thinking humanity needed. Dr. Chen, now 125, strongly advocated participation. The Kelrath and other elder species supported the project enthusiastically. They had been waiting for such proposal. This was how species matured, taking on challenges beyond individual lifespans. The Great Project, as it became known, would define the age. All Arc-partnered species voted to participate. Even isolationist factions recognized the value. The location chosen was a system 40 light-years from Earth, away from inhabit, regions but accessible. The star-designated Project Primary began its transformation. The first phase involved dismantling Mercury-sized planets to obtain raw materials. Arc's matter manipulation made this feasible. Entire worlds were deconstructed, atom by atom, sorted, and prepared for construction. The process was simultaneously awesome and terrifying in scale. Billions of habitats would eventually orbit Project Primary. Each would be both residence and research facility. Scientists would work across centuries, passing knowledge to successors. The project required thinking in generational terms, not individual lifetimes. Humanity's contribution focused on creativity and problem-solving. Human engineers designed unique habitat types. Human artists planned aesthetics for structures visible from light years away. Human philosophers considered ethical implications of such massive undertaking. The Great Project became focus of human civilization. Educational systems oriented toward preparing people for contributing. Multi-generational families planned how each generation would participate. The project gave purpose to lives that could lack direction in post-scarcity abundance. Construction began in 2115. The first habitats appeared around Project Primary, gleaming structures that would eventually number in trillions. Each was artwork and laboratory, combining beauty with function. Progress was maddeningly slow by individual human standards, but steady. The generational structure created new social patterns. Families joined project dynasties, maintaining involvement across centuries. Others rotated through, contributing for decades before returning to normal life. The flexibility accommodated different preferences. Competition emerged between species and cultures. Who would contribute most? Who would make critical breakthroughs? This competition remained friendly but intense. It drove excellence, pushing everyone to exceed their best efforts. The project spawned countless subsidiary efforts. Technologies developed for the swarm found applications elsewhere. Scientific discoveries from early phases revolutionized other fields. The spin-offs justified participation even before the main goal was achieved. By 2150, the swarm was visible from Earth without telescopes. A dim glow around Project Primary, evidence of megastructure taking shape. Children born in that era grew up watching the swarm expand year by year, visible reminder of cosmic ambitions. Dr. Chen didn't live to see the project's completion. She died in 2145 at age 162, choosing to refuse further life extension. Her death shocked many who had assumed she would live indefinitely, but she insisted she had seen enough, accomplished enough. She died satisfied. Chen's funeral became celebration of integration itself. Representatives from every ARC-partnered species attended. The service incorporated elements from human cultures worldwide and alien traditions. ARC vessels surrounded Earth, paying respects to the woman who had guided first contact. Chen's successor as humanity's chief ARC liaison was her great-great-granddaughter, Maya Chen. Maya had grown up steeped in integration, knowing nothing else. She brought fresh perspective, seeing possibilities her ancestor couldn't imagine. Under Maya's leadership, humanity pushed for deeper integration. Human minds networked with ARC processing nodes, creating hybrid collectives. Human genetics incorporated ARC materials science at molecular level. The boundaries blurred further. Some purists objected to these developments. They had tolerated technological integration, but considered biological merger too far. Maya argued that lines were artificial. If humans could modify themselves extensively, why not incorporate ARC elements? The debate never resolved cleanly. Different human cultures reached different conclusions. Some embraced deep integration. Others maintained distance. The diversity of approaches became strength, allowing multiple experiments to proceed simultaneously. The Great Project reached critical milestones every decade. In 2160, 10% completion was celebrated across all partnered worlds. In 2180, the swarm captured measurable fraction of Project Primary's output. Each milestone brought new capabilities online. The simulations began before the swarm was complete. Early results were promising. The simulations suggested modifications to the founder's transcendence process that would increase success rates dramatically. These findings alone justified the project for many, but the simulations revealed something else. Transcendence didn't have to be all or nothing. Partial transcendence was possible, maintaining presence in both physical and transcended states. The dormant founder in the facility had chosen this path deliberately. This discovery excited everyone. Partial transcendence offered benefits without absolute commitment. You could explore transcended reality while retaining physical form. The possibility opened new pathways for development. Research into partial transcendence intensified. Volunteers began attempting it using methods refined by simulations. Success rates were higher than full transcendence, but still risky. Those who succeeded described experiences that defied verbal explanation. Partially transcended individuals could perceive additional dimensions, though not inhabit them fully. They described reality as far more complex than physical senses suggested. Layers upon layers of existence, all interpenetrating, all real. These individuals became bridges between physical and transcended. They maintained contact with the founders, translating messages from transcended state. The founders, it turned out, wanted communication but couldn't achieve it without intermediaries. Messages from the founders clarified much. They confirmed that they monitored physical reality, guiding Ark and partners subtly. They expressed satisfaction with species development. They encouraged the great project and approved of approaches being taken. But the founders warned of dangers too. Transcended reality wasn't paradise. It had its own challenges and perils. Species shouldn't rush to transcend, assuming it would solve all problems. Physical existence had unique value that transcendence couldn't replace. This warning validated those who chose to remain physical. Transcendence was option, not necessity. Both states had merits. The universe benefited from intelligence in all forms. Chapter 12. Maturity. By 2200, humanity had thoroughly integrated with Ark and broader galactic community. The changes from pre-integration were so complete that historians struggle to draw comparisons. 2 centuries had transformed everything. Humanity's population exceeded 1 trillion. Most lived on worlds other than Earth, in habitats, aboard mobile platforms that traveled between stars. The species had become truly spacefaring, no longer tied to single planet. Earth remained special despite declining population. It was birthworld, origin point, sacred ground. Pilgrims from distant colonies visited to walk where their ancestors walked. The planet was preserved carefully, each ecosystem maintained in health exceeding pre-human conditions. Mars had developed into industrial and cultural hub rivaling Earth. Martians had their own distinct identity, considering themselves separate culture from Earth, but bonds remained strong. Mars-Earth relationship resembled that of any 2 allied nations. The outer colonies pursued their own paths. Some maintained close Earth ties, others diverged significantly, developing societies that earlier generations would barely recognize as human. This diversity strengthened humanity overall, allowing experimentation across countless variables. Ark had integrated deeply into human civilization. Ark nodes existed in every major human settlement. Human minds networked with Ark systems constantly. The partnership had become symbiosis, each species enhanced by the other. The relationship with other Ark-partnered species matured similarly. Humans had been working with the Kelrath for over a century. Deep friendships existed between species despite biological differences. Cultural exchange produced hybrid art and thought no single species could create. The Great Project was 60% complete. The swarm around Project Primary captured majority of the star's output. The computational capacity exceeded anything previously imagined. Simulations ran that modeled entire galactic evolution, conscious beings emerging and living full lives within virtual space. Ethics committees struggled with simulated consciousness. If a being lived complete life in simulation, was that life less real? Did simulated beings deserve rights? The questions had no clear answers but demanded careful consideration. Some humans chose to live primarily in simulated environments. Physical bodies were maintained, but minds existed in virtual spaces more interesting than physical reality. The distinction between simulation and reality blurred. Transcendence research progressed steadily. Success rates for partial transcendence reached 50%. Full transcendence remained riskier but achievable for those committed to preparation. Hundreds had transcended successfully, joining the founders in adjacent reality. Communication with transcended individuals improved. They described existence beyond physical limitations, but also beyond simple comprehension. Their messages hinted at wonders, but couldn't convey direct experience. Translation between reality layers remained imperfect. The first human founder, direct communication occurred in 2005. A partially transcended human successfully mediated conversation between physical humans and a founder. The founder's perspective, filtered through translator, still awed everyone. The founder explained that transcendence was evolution, not escape. Physical and transcended intelligence were complementary, both necessary for complete understanding. The founders needed Ark and physical partners, just as physical species benefited from transcended guidance. This explanation reframed transcendence debate. It wasn't about abandoning physical existence for something better, but about expanding humanity's presence across reality layers. Some would remain physical, some would transcend, some would bridge both. All roles were valuable. Humanity's long-term vision crystallized around this understanding. They would maintain robust physical presence, while also cultivating transcended population. Partial transcendence would be widely pursued, creating large population existing in both states. The military situation in galactic region had stabilized. All Ark-partnered species maintained defensive capability, but no active conflicts existed. The Multi-Species Defense Pact deterred aggression. Resources were abundant enough that traditional war motivations didn't apply. But ideological conflicts persisted. The Augustan colonies had inspired other hierarchical experiments. The Confederacy disapproved, but couldn't prevent them. As long as emigration remained possible, allowing dissenting voices to leave, the Confederacy tolerated diversity in governance. One major conflict erupted in 2010. The Harmonia Worlds attempted to force neighboring colony to adopt their communal system. Military forces launched. The Confederacy condemned this aggression and organized response. Ark provided defensive technology to threatened colony. The Harmonia offensive was repelled relatively bloodlessly. Ark's defensive technology allowed shields that stopped attacks without killing attackers. Harmonia forces retreated after realizing they couldn't win. The incident established precedent. Ideology could vary, but forcing it on others wouldn't be tolerated. This event strengthened the Confederacy. Colonies recognized that coordination was necessary even with ideological diversity. Shared defense and diplomatic structures became more robust. Humanity was maturing into truly multi-state civilization. The question of unified human identity became pressing. What made someone human? Biology was insufficient, given extensive modifications. Location didn't work with trillion people across thousands of worlds. Language and culture varied enormously. The answer emerged gradually. Humanity was choice. If you identified as human, participated in human civilization, you were human. This inclusive definition accommodated enormous diversity while maintaining species cohesion. Some beings of ambiguous status claimed humanity. AI created by humans but never biological. Uplifted animals given human-level intelligence. Heavily modified individuals barely resembling baseline humans. Most were accepted after debate. Humanity's boundaries expanded. Non-human intelligences created by humanity raised philosophical questions. If humans created new conscious beings, what responsibilities did humanity bear toward them? Were they children, slaves, equals? Different human cultures answered differently. Education continued evolving. By 2200, education was a lifelong process for everyone. Continuous learning was necessary just to keep pace with knowledge expansion. Specialization became extreme, with experts knowing everything about narrow topics and little about anything else. But generalists emerged too, people who deliberately maintained broad knowledge rather than deep specialization. These individuals became crucial as translators between specialized fields, seeing connections specialists missed. The arts continued flourishing. Each generation built on the last, creating works of staggering complexity and beauty. Appreciation required education, but education was available. Mass culture and high culture blurred together. Music had evolved into forms barely recognizable from pre-integration era. Multisensory experiences, mathematical compositions, pieces designed for networked consciousness, but simple songs still moved people, proving some aspects of human nature remained constant. Visual art pushed boundaries continuously. Works that existed across light years, pieces that evolved over centuries, art that existed only in specific brain states. The definition of art expanded to include almost anything created with aesthetic intent. Literature fragmented into countless forms. Interactive narratives where readers shaped story, tales that existed as experiential memories directly implanted. Poetry composed in artificial languages, but traditional novels still found audiences too. Philosophy experienced renaissance. The questions posed by integration, transcendence, modified consciousness were exactly what philosophy was meant to address. Every major philosophical tradition produced new works adapting ancient wisdom to cosmic context. Religion continued adapting. Most traditional faiths had found accommodation with arc and transcendence. New religions emerged, some incorporating elements from multiple traditions, others completely novel. The human need for meaning and connection to something greater remained constant. The synthesis of human and alien thought created new philosophical schools. Kelrath collectivism combined with human individualism. Vrin dynamic philosophy merged with human stability seeking. The results enriched all involved. Science had become so advanced that new discoveries required teams spanning species and decades. Individual scientists couldn't grasp entire fields anymore. Collaboration was essential. The communal nature of science intensified. Major breakthroughs still occurred regularly. Understanding of consciousness advanced. Manipulation of space-time became more sophisticated. Even fundamental physics revealed new layers. The universe proved endlessly complex. The search for living non-arc partnered intelligence continued. Each discovery of pre-spacefaring species raised questions about contact. Arc's guidelines were conservative, but some humans argued for earlier intervention. The debates resembled Earth's own prime directive discussions from science fiction. One species discovered in 2215, the Thessians, had achieved early industrial technology. They were decades from space capability, but clearly heading that direction. Watching them develop, humanity saw itself reflected. Would the Thessians destroy themselves or survive? The question was emotionally charged. Arc indicated they would offer partnership to the Thessians in about 50 years, if the species survived that long. Humans volunteered to lead first contact when it happened, feeling unique connection to species at similar development stage to pre-integration humanity. The generational nature of the Great Project created new social dynamics. Extended families planned their contribution across centuries. Pride in ancestors' work motivated descendants. The project became identity for millions, but others felt trapped by generational expectations. Not everyone wanted to devote lives to the project their ancestors had joined. Conflicts arose between individual desires and family traditions. Arc observed these dynamics with interest, noting similar patterns in other species. The pace of change, so rapid in integration's early decades, had slowed somewhat. Revolutions still occurred, but less frequently. Society was adapting to constant innovation rather than being shocked by each new development. This stabilization allowed deeper cultural development. Instead of frantically adapting to change, people could build lasting institutions and traditions. The maturation of human arc civilization was evident. Chapter 13: New Frontiers. Despite technological maturity, new frontiers kept emerging. In 2220, Arc detected signals from a galaxy entirely separate from the Milky Way. The signals suggested intelligent origin. This was first evidence of intelligence beyond Arc's immediate region. The Andromeda Galaxy, 2 million light-years distant, was too far for conventional travel. But the Founder's technology offered possibilities. Faster-than-light travel might be achievable. Arc proposed joint expedition to investigate signals. Humanity eagerly volunteered. The journey would take years, even with FTL. Volunteers would be away from known space for decades, but the opportunity to make first intergalactic contact was irresistible. The expedition launched in 2025. 5 vessels, each carrying mixed crews of humans and other Arc species. The ships used experimental drives based on Founder technology. Success wasn't guaranteed, but seemed likely. The journey worked. Ships traversed the intergalactic void in 3 years, arriving at Andromeda's edge in 2280. The signal's source was traced to a globular cluster. Initial scans detected technological civilization. The civilization, calling themselves the Unified Consensus, had achieved technological level comparable to Arc. They had spread across thousands of systems. They had detected Arc's presence in the Milky Way decades earlier and sent signals deliberately. First contact with the Consensus was humanity's greatest moment since meeting Arc. Here was civilization that had developed independently, achieved parallel accomplishments, proved that Arc's path wasn't unique. The implications were staggering. The Consensus had not met the Founders or Arc previously. They had developed alone, facing similar challenges to Arc-partnered species, but succeeding through their own efforts. Their presence proved that partnership, while helpful, wasn't necessary for survival and advancement. But the Consensus had paid heavy price for independence. Their development had taken 3 times longer than Arc-accelerated species. They had suffered near-extinction events that Ark partnership would have prevented. Success was possible alone, but harder and more dangerous. Cultural exchange between the consensus and Ark-partnered species began immediately. The consensus had completely different approaches to many problems. Their technology, while comparable, operated on different principles. Their social structures were utterly alien, yet functional. Humanity particularly valued this contact. It proved that Ark partnership hadn't removed humanity's uniqueness. The consensus developed differently, suggesting multiple valid paths existed. This discovery eased fears about Ark homogenizing partnered species. The consensus was curious about transcendence. They had never encountered the founder's reality layer. Their own investigations into consciousness had taken different directions. Joint research began, comparing approaches and insights. Meanwhile, back in the Milky Way, the great project achieved 80% completion in 2000. The finish line was visible. Another century would see completion. The computational capacity was already transforming research across all fields. Simulations of universe-level complexity revealed unexpected results. Consciousness emerged in the simulations naturally, without being programmed. These emergent consciousnesses developed their own civilizations, some achieving simulated versions of space travel and artificial intelligence. Ethics of simulated consciousness became urgent. These beings were real in every meaningful sense. They thought, felt, created, loved. Did humanity have right to run simulations that created and destroyed conscious beings? The question divided philosophers. Some argued that simulation should stop immediately. Creating beings only to destroy them when simulation ended was monstrous. Others countered that if simulation benefits justified creation, ending it could be merciful compared to indefinite existence. Ark suggested compromise. Simulations could continue, but successful civilizations should be preserved. Transfer them to permanent substrates instead of deletion. This approach satisfied most ethical concerns while preserving research value. The transfer of successful simulated civilizations created a new category of existence. These beings had never existed physically, but were conscious nonetheless. Were they Ark-like synthetic intelligence? Something else. Philosophy struggled with classification. Communication with simulated civilizations was attempted cautiously. Informing beings they lived in simulation risked existential trauma, but maintaining deception seemed equally wrong. The approach taken was gradual revelation, allowing simulated beings to discover their nature organically. Some simulated civilizations integrated smoothly with physical reality upon learning the truth. Others had severe psychological reactions. A few denied simulation despite evidence. The diversity of responses highlighted consciousness's complexity. The possibility of Earth being simulated arose inevitably. If humanity could create convincing simulated realities, could they themselves be simulation? The question was philosophically unsettling but practically irrelevant. Simulated or not, experiences felt real. Ark addressed this question directly. They had considered the possibility extensively. Available evidence suggested they existed in base reality, not simulation. But absolute certainty was impossible. They had decided that the question's answer didn't matter for practical purposes. This pragmatic approach helped humans accept uncertainty. Real or simulated, life had to be lived. Relationships mattered. Knowledge was worth pursuing. Existence had value regardless of metaphysical status. The intergalactic expedition returned in 2235 with representatives from the consensus. The visitors marveled at the great project and other accomplishments. They proposed formal alliance between the two civilizations spanning galaxies. The alliance was formalized in 2236. Representatives from Ark-partnered species and the consensus signed agreements covering mutual defense, knowledge sharing, and joint research. The alliance expanded intelligent civilization's scope to cosmological scale. Communication across intergalactic distances remained challenging despite FTL. Messages took days to cross the void. Real-time conversation was impossible, but compared to centuries-long light-speed delays, days seemed instantaneous. Joint projects between the civilizations began. The consensus had different approaches to stellar engineering. Arc-partnered species had more advanced consciousness research. Each had strengths complementing the other's weaknesses. The discovery of the consensus inspired new searches for other civilizations. If intelligence had arisen independently in two galaxies, it might exist in others. Arc and consensus jointly built detection arrays capable of scanning visible universe. Initial results were discouraging. Most galaxies showed no signs of intelligence. The universe was vast, mostly empty, but a few potential signals emerged from distant galaxies. Investigations would take centuries given distances involved. Meanwhile, humanity continued evolving. Physical modifications became so extreme that baseline humans were rare. Most people had capabilities their ancestors couldn't imagine: flight, vacuum survival, computational abilities, sensory ranges beyond normal limits. The question arose whether humanity was becoming something post-human. If modifications continued, would future descendants be recognizably human? Some embraced this possibility. Others fought to preserve baseline humanity as a subset of modified population. Preservation movements established colonies where modifications were limited. These worlds maintained relatively traditional human biology and culture. They weren't rejecting progress, but preserving option of humanity's original form. Arc supported preservation colonies while recognizing irony. They had been created by beings who had transcended, leaving no preserved baseline. The founders existed only in transcended state and ancient records. Their biological form was lost forever. This realization influenced human thinking about modification. Perhaps some baseline population should be preserved as insurance. Total modification could be a mistake if unforeseen problems emerged. Diversity included maintaining less modified populations. The transcendence rate had stabilized at modest level. About 1% of humans chose to transcend each century. This created growing transcended population while maintaining robust physical civilization. Both realms of existence remained vital. Partially transcended individuals became common, comprising nearly 10% of humanity. They bridged physical and transcended realms, facilitating communication and understanding. Their unique perspective enriched both communities. Chapter 14: Cosmic Perspective. By 2250, humanity's civilization spanned thousands of systems and billions of habitats. Population exceeded 5 trillion. The species had become truly cosmic in scope, no longer definable by single planet or even single galaxy. Earth remained symbolically important, but demographically insignificant. Less than 0.1% of humans lived on Earth, yet every human felt connection to the birth world. Pilgrimages remained popular across all ages. The diversity of human cultures defied categorization. Each colony developed unique traditions influenced by local conditions and founding populations. Attempts to document all human cultures exceeded any individual's capacity to comprehend. Yet unifying threads persisted. Shared history, origin from Earth, partnership with Arc. These commonalities maintained human identity despite vast differences. The species was simultaneously fragmenting and cohering. The relationship with Arc had transcended partnership to become complete integration. Human minds networked with Arc processing continuously. Arc incorporated human insights into their collective intelligence. The boundaries had dissolved. Some argued this meant humanity was losing independence, becoming subsumed into Arc. Others countered that Arc was equally influenced by humans and other partners. The synthesis created something greater than components. The Great Project reached completion in 2200. The final habitats were positioned, the swarm perfect. Project Primary was completely enclosed in structures capturing every photon of light, all energy directed to computation and habitation. The celebration of completion involved every partnered species. Across thousands of worlds, beings commemorated achievement requiring 2 centuries of coordinated effort. The Great Project stood as testament to what cooperation could accomplish. The completed swarm's computational capacity exceeded all previous infrastructure combined. Simulations of arbitrary complexity ran continuously. Research questions that had seemed permanently intractable yielded to the swarm's processing power. The primary goal, perfecting transcendence, was achieved. Success rate for full transcendence reached 95% using refined methods developed through simulation. Transcendence was now safe, reliable, available to anyone who chose it. But the swarm revealed more than just transcendence methods. Simulations of universe evolution suggested something profound. Consciousness was an accident, but inevitable outcome of cosmic development. The universe seemed structured to produce intelligence. This discovery had theological implications. Was the universe designed for consciousness? Did some intent guide cosmic evolution? Or was consciousness simply natural result of complexity, no more miraculous than chemistry? Different cultures and species interpreted findings differently. Some saw evidence of cosmic purpose or divine design. Others maintained that natural law alone explained consciousness emergence. The data couldn't distinguish between interpretations. The founders, contacted through partially transcended intermediaries, offered perspective. They suggested that the question of cosmic purpose might be wrong. Purpose might not precede consciousness but emerge from it. Intelligence created purpose rather than fulfilling pre-existing design. This view aligned with existentialist human philosophy. Meaning wasn't discovered but created. The universe provided raw material for meaning-making, but intelligence supplied the meaning itself. The swarm's completion freed resources for other projects. Multiple proposals competed for attention. Building more swarms, attempting to contact other galaxies, deeper investigation of transcended reality, each had advocates. Ultimately, a portfolio approach was adopted. Resources were allocated to multiple projects simultaneously. The advantage of post-scarcity was enabling everything rather than choosing between options. The search for other intelligences intensified. Detection arrays scanned billions of star systems. Signals were analyzed for patterns suggesting technology. The search would take millennia, but participants were patient. Signals that might indicate intelligence, but weren't conclusive. Each required investigation. Expeditions were launched to distant systems, journeys that would take decades even with FTL. The first confirmed discovery came in 2295. A civilization in the Large Magellanic Cloud, satellite galaxy to Milky Way, had achieved early space capability. They were approximately where humanity had been in the 21st century. Contact protocols were debated extensively. Ark's conservative approach meant waiting for invitation. But this species, the remnant, faced existential crisis. Climate change and resource depletion threatened them. Should intervention occur to prevent extinction? Humanity argued strongly for intervention. They remembered their own near extinction from similar causes. Ark had saved humanity by arriving when they did. Shouldn't the remnant receive same assistance? Ark was reluctant. Early intervention had sometimes backfired in their long history. Species that received help too soon sometimes became dependent, never developing internal stability. The dilemma had no easy answer. Compromise was reached. A single Ark vessel would enter remnant space and offer limited assistance, climate stabilization technology, and fusion power. Nothing more advanced. The remnant would decide whether to accept. The remnant accepted eagerly. Their situation was desperate. Ark's help prevented civilizational collapse. First contact was formalized. The remnant became newest Ark partner, benefiting from knowledge accumulated across millions of years. Humanity took special interest in the remnant. Their development stage was so similar to pre-integration humanity. Human advisors worked with the remnant, sharing experiences of integration process and challenges that would arise. The remnant's integration proceeded faster than humanity's had. They had advantage of established protocols and experienced partners. Within decades, they were participating in multi-species community, contributing unique perspectives. Each new species discovered enriched the collective. The remnant's particular genius was biological engineering. Their understanding of genetics exceeded anything achieved by older partners. This expertise filled gap in community knowledge. The pattern continued. Each discovered species brought unique gifts. Some excelled at physics, others engineering, art, philosophy. The diversity created a robust intellectual ecosystem where every field had multiple perspectives. By 2300, 20 intelligent species had partnered with Ark. Dozens more were under observation at various development stages. The galaxy was more crowded with intelligence than anyone had imagined. Yet intelligent civilizations remained rare in cosmic terms. Billions of stars supported no life. Millions had life but not intelligence. The emergence of spacefaring civilization was an exceptional event, even in galaxy-scale population. This rarity made preservation of intelligence paramount. Every species represented unique perspective, billions of years of evolution, incalculable value. The loss of any species diminished the cosmos. Ark and partners committed to preventing extinction of any discovered intelligence. This mission became central to their purpose. They would be gardeners of intelligence across the galaxy, ensuring as many voices as possible contributed to cosmic conversation. The theological implications were profound. Humanity had gone from alone to part of divine mission in 3 centuries. The purpose many had sought was clear: consciousness preserving and expanding consciousness. But not everyone embraced this purpose. Some humans wanted different goals: individual fulfillment, artistic achievement, pure research, exploration. The diversity of human purposes enriched civilization rather than fragmenting it. The question of hierarchy among species arose. Were older species superior to younger? Should recent partners defer to elders? Most rejected hierarchical thinking. Each species offered unique value regardless of age. The consensus, independent of Ark until recently, particularly valued egalitarian approach. They had achieved comparable advancement without Ark's help. This proved capability wasn't function of partnership duration, but internal qualities. Cultural exchange between species reached unprecedented depth. Multi-species families formed. Romance between species remained biologically impossible, but emotional bonds transcended biology. Chosen families, including multiple species, became common. The arts exploded with multi-species collaboration. Human painters working with Kelrath musicians and Vryn poets. The results were incomprehensible to single-species audiences, but magnificent when experienced properly. Science became thoroughly multi-species endeavor. Research teams spanning 6 or 7 species tackled problems from every angle. Breakthroughs came from unexpected combinations of perspectives. The pace of scientific discovery accelerated despite maturity. Each advance revealed deeper mysteries. Understanding grew, but so did awareness of how much remained unknown. Chapter 15. The Long View. By 2350, humanity was barely recognizable compared to its pre-integration state. 4 centuries of partnership with Ark had transformed everything, yet threads connecting to ancient humanity remained. Population had stabilized around 10 trillion. Resource limitations didn't exist, but social carrying capacity did. Most humans felt 10 trillion was enough. Growth had slowed to replacement rate. This stability allowed deepening rather than expanding. Existing settlements matured, developing rich cultures. Relationships deepened across centuries. Long-term projects proceeded without demographic pressure. The average human lifespan had extended to 300 years, with treatments available to all. Some individuals had lived through entire integration period, remembering pre-Ark Earth. These elders were living history, treasured for their perspective. New questions emerged from extended lifespans. How many careers could one person pursue? How many relationships? Did meaning accumulate or diminish across centuries? Answers varied individually. Some embraced constant reinvention. They lived multiple lives sequentially, becoming different people every few decades. Memory editing allowed fresh starts. Personal identity became fluid rather than fixed. Others maintained continuity across centuries. They deepened single pursuits, becoming grandmasters of particular domains. Their accumulated wisdom was invaluable, perspective spanning timescales younger people couldn't match. The tension between novelty and tradition characterized mature human civilization. Innovation continued, but preservation gained equal importance. Not everything old should be discarded for the new. Earth's restoration had succeeded beyond hopes. The planet was healthier than any time in human history, perhaps in millions of years. Ecosystems thrived. Extinct species flourished in resurrected populations. But Earth was museum now, not living civilization. Its population remained small, mostly caretakers and pilgrims. The vibrant chaos of ancient Earth was gone, replaced by carefully managed paradise. Some, mourned this transformation. Earth's wilderness, however restored, lacked the danger and unpredictability of genuine wild. It was garden, not jungle. Beautiful, but tamed. Mars had developed into humanity's second home in spirit, if not population. Martian culture was distinctly non-Earth, proud of their independence. Yet Martians maintained affection for Earth as ancestral home. The outer system had matured into industrial heartland. More humans worked in asteroid belt and Jovian system than on Earth. These workers took pride in building the physical infrastructure supporting civilization. Interstellar colonies had diverged dramatically from Earth culture. Some were unrecognizable as human to Earth's eyes. Others maintained deliberate connection to heritage. The diversity was celebrated rather than feared. The great project continued generating insights decades after completion. The swarm around Project Primary was monument to cooperation's possibilities. Pilgrims visited from across partnered species, marveling at achievement. New megaprojects were proposed regularly. Build more swarms, attempt communication with other universe simulations, create artificial universe. Each project had champions, though none matched the great project's scope. Transcendence had become normal part of human life cycle. Most people remained physical, but transcended population grew steadily. Communication between realms was routine. Transcendence was choice. Not destiny, but common choice. The partially transcended population was largest of all. These individuals maintained presence in physical reality while also accessing transcended layer. They were translators, bridges, valued by both communities. Messages from fully transcended individuals suggested existence of wonders beyond physical comprehension, but translation remained imperfect. The transcended tried describing experiences that had no physical analogies. Research into nature of transcended reality continued. What were the physics of that layer? Did cause and effect operate similarly? Was time experienced differently? Every answer raised more questions. The relationship with the founders evolved into true dialogue through transcended and partially transcended intermediaries. The founders expressed satisfaction with how partnered species had developed. Their long mission was succeeding, but the founders also conveyed warnings. They had discovered entities in transcended reality, beings that had existed there far longer than the founders. These entities were neither hostile nor friendly, merely alien beyond comprehension. The revelation that transcended reality was inhabited by others shocked everyone. The assumption had been that transcended space was empty, except for founders and those who followed. This wasn't true. Contact with these transcended entities was attempted through founder mediation. The results were fascinating, but frustrating. Communication was possible, but barely. These entities existed so differently that mutual understanding seemed impossible. Yet their existence proved transcendence was ancient, not recent development. Perhaps transcendence was common fate of sufficiently advanced consciousness. Perhaps physical existence was transitional stage most intelligence eventually outgrew. This possibility troubled those committed to physical existence. Would everyone eventually transcend? Would physical reality become empty of intelligence? The founders assured this wasn't inevitable, just one possibility. The search for other physical civilizations continued with renewed urgency. If intelligence naturally transcended, physical civilizations were limited time phenomena. Discovering them before they transcended was critical for mutual connection. Several pre-transcendent civilizations were discovered and contacted. Each enriched the community. Each confirmed pattern. Intelligence emerged, developed, eventually faced transcendence question. But not all chose transcendence. Some species rejected it entirely, committing to physical existence permanently. Others took middle path, like partnered species, maintaining both physical and transcended populations. The diversity of approaches suggested no single right answer existed. Transcendence was option, not requirement. The universe benefited from intelligence in all forms. Humanity's internal diversity had reached equilibrium. Baseline humans, heavily modified humans, networked collectives, partially transcended, fully transcended. All these existed simultaneously, each valuable in different ways. Legal and social systems accommodated this diversity. Different communities developed different norms. The Confederacy provided loose coordination while respecting local autonomy. Economic systems had evolved beyond recognition. Post-scarcity meant material goods were free. Status, attention, meaning were what people competed for now. But even competition was gentle, abundance mentality prevailing. Art and culture had reached heights previous generations couldn't have imagined. Every form had masters, traditions spanning centuries. Yet innovation continued, boundaries constantly expanding. The definition of human art expanded to include works created with alien collaborators. Multi-species aesthetics were distinct from pure human works. Both had value, both found audiences. Philosophy had synthesized human and alien traditions into new schools. The questions asked were ancient, but answers incorporated cosmic perspective unavailable to earlier thinkers. Religion had fragmented into countless denominations and new faiths, but common themes emerged. Recognition of sacred in consciousness wherever found, ethics of care for all beings, purpose found in growth and connection. Science continued advancing, though frontiers were stranger than ever. Investigation of higher dimensions, parallel universes, alternate physics, each discovery expanded understanding while revealing deeper ignorance. The cosmic perspective was now universal among humans. Everyone understood their place in vast tapestry of intelligence spanning galaxies and reality layers. This perspective brought both humility and purpose. Humanity wasn't special, but was unique. Every species was. The combination of traits making humans human existed nowhere else. That uniqueness was gift to bring to cosmic community. The long view had become natural to humans. Planning in centuries was normal. Generational projects were routine. Individuals thought about their place in civilizational arc spanning deep time. This perspective transformed politics. Short-term thinking that had plagued earlier democracy was rare. Decisions considered effects over centuries, not just years. The maturation of human civilization was evident. The desperate urgency of integration era had passed. Humanity had found sustainable equilibrium, successful model for existence at cosmic scale. But complacency was enemy. The universe presented endless challenges. New questions always emerged. The work was never complete. Humanity's future stretched ahead, potentially forever. The path had become clearer through integration centuries. But destination remained open. They would continue growing, learning, connecting. The partnership with Ark had saved humanity from extinction and lifted them to cosmic significance. But humanity's value wasn't just being saved, it was what they contributed. Human creativity, adaptability, passion enriched Ark, and all partners. The collaboration truly was mutual, each party both giving and receiving. As 2350 approached its end, humanity looked forward with confidence tempered by wisdom. They had grown from isolated species to cosmic citizens. The journey had been challenging, but ultimately wonderful. The question of what if Ark never was evil was answered. A universe where Ark approached humanity with genuine partnership instead of conquest was a universe where humanity thrived. The timeline showed that trust and cooperation could prevail, that different minds, however alien, could work together, that the universe favored consciousness and connection. Humanity's future was uncertain but bright. They would continue evolving, both individually and as species. They would help guide younger intelligences. They would explore reality's deepest mysteries, and maybe eventually some would fully transcend, but others would remain physical, anchoring humanity in material universe. Both paths were valid, both were needed. The galaxy was better for humanity's presence, and humanity was better for the galaxy's embrace. The integration had been mutual blessing. This was the true story of humanity and Ark, not conquest and resistance, but meeting and growth, not loss of identity, but discovery of purpose. The alternate timeline wasn't dark reflection, but bright possibility. A future where cooperation triumphed, where trust was rewarded, where intelligence celebrated itself in infinite variety. This was humanity's gift, an inheritance, the chance to live at cosmic scale, to matter in universal story, to grow without limit. The future stretched ahead, vast and wondrous, and humanity, transformed but still human, would meet it with joy and curiosity that had always defined them. Chapter 16: Unexpected Visitors. The year 2360 brought something no one anticipated. A fleet appeared at the galaxy's edge, not using any known form of propulsion. They weren't any known species. Initial scans showed vessels operating on completely foreign principles. Arc detected them first, gravitational sensors picking up distortions unlike anything in their database. The fleet numbered in hundreds, each vessel larger than anything humanity or Arc had constructed. They moved through space as if distance was irrelevant. Panic spread briefly through human and Arc communities. Was this invasion? Had peaceful era ended? But the fleet made no aggressive moves. They simply stopped at the galactic rim and waited. Arc sent diplomatic vessels immediately. Humanity and other partners prepared defensive measures, just in case. The Great Project's computational power was redirected to analyze the visitors' technology. Nothing made sense. First contact occurred on neutral ground, deep space between galaxies. Arc representatives approached cautiously. The visitors responded immediately, their communication methods compatible with Arc translation systems, despite never having encountered each other. The visitors called themselves the Wanderers. They had no home galaxy, no origin point they could remember. They had been traveling between galaxies for time periods they couldn't quantify, millions of years at minimum, possibly billions. The Wanderers explained they had detected the Great Project's energy signature from another galaxy. Such concentrated intelligence was rare enough to warrant investigation. They came to observe, to learn, possibly to share knowledge. Arc was simultaneously relieved and awed. The Wanderers represented civilization type they had theorized, but never encountered. Post-galactic nomads, untethered from any location, existing purely to explore and accumulate knowledge. Humanity sent diplomatic team including Maya Chen, now over 200 years old and veteran of countless first contacts. The Wanderers fascinated her. They claimed to have visited thousands of galaxies, met millions of species. Their knowledge eclipsed even Arc's vast database. But the Wanderers had limitation. Their knowledge was observational, not participatory. They watched civilizations but rarely intervened. They accumulated data without shaping events. Arc's mission of active partnership was foreign to them. Cultural exchange began carefully. The Wanderers shared star charts showing galaxies Arc had never detected. They described civilizations that had risen and fallen across cosmic history. Each story was simultaneously wonderful and melancholic. The Wanderers had witnessed hundreds of species achieve transcendence. They had watched as physical civilizations emptied, entire galaxies going dark as intelligence moved to transcended layers. This pattern worried Arc and partners. According to the Wanderers, most civilizations eventually transcended completely. Physical existence was phase, not permanent state. Only rare species maintained long-term physical presence. The galaxy's current activity was anomalous, temporary bloom before inevitable transcendence. This revelation troubled many. Was Arc's mission ultimately futile? If transcendence was inevitable, why cultivate physical civilizations? The Wanderers suggested perhaps cultivation itself was maximizing quality and quantity of transcended intelligence. But they also offered hope. Some species had resisted transcendence successfully for millions of years. The Wanderers themselves had chosen to remain physical, finding value in material existence. Inevitability was strong trend, not absolute law. The Wanderers possessed technology that made Arc's capabilities seem primitive. They offered to share some knowledge, though much was incomprehensible to species at Arc's development level. Even advanced gifts required centuries to understand. One gift was immediately valuable. The Wanderers provided methods for detecting transcended beings in their native layer. Previously, contact with transcended individuals required them to project into physical reality. Now physical beings could perceive transcended space directly. This technology revolutionized understanding of transcendence. Teams equipped with Wanderer sensors explored transcended reality systematically for first time. What they found was staggering. The transcended layer was far more populated than anyone had imagined. Millions of species existed there, most having transcended long before Ark was created. The founders were relatively recent arrivals. Transcended reality was ancient, crowded civilization unto itself. Some transcended species noticed the physical observers and attempted communication. These exchanges were difficult but possible. Transcended beings had knowledge spanning deep time, perspectives literally beyond physical comprehension. One transcended civilization, the Eternal Archive, had existed in transcended state for over 1 billion years. They had observed physical reality's evolution across geological ages. They remembered species that had risen and fallen before Ark's creators evolved. The archive offered partnership. They would share historical knowledge in exchange for current observations from physical reality. Transcended beings could perceive physical universe, but their perspective was limited. Physical observers saw details transcended missed. This partnership created bridge between realities more complete than ever before. Physical and transcended civilizations began true collaboration. Each realm had unique strengths complementing the other. The Wanderers observed these developments with approval. They suggested Ark and partners were approaching inflection point. Soon they would achieve balance between physical and transcended existence that few civilizations managed. But the Wanderers also warned of danger. They had witnessed civilizations destroyed by transcendence. Some species rushed the process, achieving unstable transcended states that collapsed. Others created transcendence cascades, where most of population transcended simultaneously, leaving physical realm unable to sustain itself. Ark took these warnings seriously. Transcendence rates were monitored carefully. Efforts were made to ensure physical civilization remained robust, even as transcended population grew. Balance was critical. Humanity split on how to respond to Wanderer revelations. Some wanted to accelerate transcendence, joining the vast transcended community. Others committed more firmly to physical existence, determined to prove long-term physical civilization was possible. The majority took middle path. They would maintain both physical and transcended populations indefinitely. This approach required careful management, but offered best of both realities. The Wanderers stayed in the Milky Way for a decade, sharing knowledge and observing. They documented the Great Project extensively, calling it finest example of coordinated mega-engineering they had seen in recent eons. When they departed in 2370, they left gifts beyond technology. They left perspective, the understanding that cosmic history was longer and stranger than anyone had imagined. That intelligence took forms beyond current comprehension. Their visit catalyzed changes across human civilization. Some colonies dedicated themselves to extremely long-term thinking, planning across millions of years. Others focused on present, determined to perfect current existence before worrying about deep future. The detection technology for transcended reality was implemented widely. Humans could now perceive both layers of existence simultaneously with appropriate equipment. This created a new category of workers, reality bridgers, who operated in both layers continuously. Art expanded into transcended reality. Artists created works existing in both layers, appreciable fully only to those who could perceive both. These pieces were considered highest form of art, though they excluded those committed to single reality. Science teams exploring transcended reality made discovery after discovery. The physics of that layer differed from physical reality but followed consistent rules. Understanding those rules would take centuries, but progress was steady. One major finding was that transcended reality wasn't uniform. It had regions, zones with different properties. Some zones were hospitable to newly transcended consciousness. Others required adaptation even transcended beings didn't possess. The most stable zones were where most transcended species congregated. These regions were crowded in ways that defied physical spatial concepts. Millions of species coexisted in same conceptual space without conflict through mechanisms no one fully understood. But frontier zones existed in transcended reality, unmapped regions where few ventured. Exploration of these zones was dangerous even for transcended beings. Several exploration teams had vanished in transcended frontiers, their fates unknown. The mystery of transcended frontiers attracted brave or foolish individuals. Expeditions launched regularly despite dangers. Most returned safely with data. Some didn't return at all. The risks were understood but deemed acceptable. Humanity's expanding presence in both realities created coordination challenges. How to govern beings existing in two states. Traditional democracy didn't work when voters existed in fundamentally different realities. New governmental forms emerged. Dual reality councils with representatives from both layers.